right, ladies and gentlemen, grab your cloaks, your hiking boots. We're on the road today. We're following a man. He's the Casanova of Cathay, the Slayer of Shangdu, the Venetian vaginal whisperer, the Don Juan of Dohuang, Marco Emilio Polo.
He put the lust. Yes. He put the lust in Chinese Wonderlust.
Yes.
I got to start out just by saying this. I know that we always talk about a lot about famous explorers, and they talk about Marco Polo as a very famous explorer.
The man's got a game.
Marco Polo was a traveler. Mm-hmm. That's all he was. This wasn't his trip over to China wasn't because the king had said, "Hey, go take extemporaneous notes, go keep a diary over here." He just kept a diary as he was over traveling.
He's just like a traveling chronicler. Is that what it is, chronicler?
And he had no pressure to do any of this stuff. It was just his father and his uncle were like, "Hey, we just got back from Asia. Didn't know that you were born or a real thing or alive because we can't pass letters back and forth. I know you're my son. Would you like to head back to Asia with us?"
Yeah. So he's over in an area where he looks different than everyone else.
Yep.
Normally, if you're in that area and you look different from someone else, at some point you're going to get messed with. But this is a guy, a Venetian guy, Italian guy, that goes over just for trade. And it's not like we're going over to trade as in like, what was not the Boxer Rebellion. We did an episode on it. The Opium Wars.
Yes.
They're not going over to trade like the British where it's like, hey, take our opium. He's just going over there as kind of a small contingent to see what kind of goods they have. But he gets an all-access pass, quite literally, to all of China. Kublai Khan's just like, take this with you. Show it to everybody you meet. No one's going to mess with you. If you need to stay the night somewhere, this will get you in. If you need to go anywhere within China, this right here is your black card that basically allows it. So he gets to go around and see all these things where normally if you're a missionary, you're kind of worried because you're taking religion into another place. If you're a conqueror, you have hostile, environment. He just gets to go and see this shit.
He's not sleeping on the ground in any of these places.
No, he's getting a peek inside it like almost no one else would.
Yeah. And he fell into this. We've talked about him during the Silk Road episode. This kid was 17 years old when he sets off for China. He's so young, and the whole reason he gets to is because his father, Niccolo, and hilarious that they met like less than a year before they go to Asia together.
Yeah.
And then his uncle, Maffeo, which Niccolo Polo, Maffeo Polo, great names together. Mm-hmm. But they were just two Venetian merchants that made their way close to Asia. And then they couldn't go back to Venice because there were wars going on because of where they just were, because the Venetians got some sticky fingers in the areas of the Byzantine Empire.
Yep. And
so they just kept pushing east, and they kept pushing east. And then they just happened to run into one of Kublai Khan's messengers out there, and he looks at him. He's like, "Oh, Guaylo, two Guaylos. Never seen you guys before. Khan's never seen guys like you before either. Do you want to come back and meet him?" Like, they weren't there on a merchant mission to China. They were just two guys that nobody had ever seen before.
Yeah.
No, nobody had ever seen white Phoenicians. And the guy's like, "Kublai's going to get a kick out of you two. Come on with me."
So Marco Polo, born 1254.
Oh, we got to start the episode.
Oh yeah. How are we already in this? We're that's how in the zone we are. Okay, remember guys, like, rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff. 5 stars. Keep the comments coming.
Love you.
You got anything else?
No, let's jump in.
We already deep into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Marco's, we gotta Marco's later down the road. This is Marco Polo's episode, but Marco Polo doesn't come into this for a very long time.
He doesn't, but I want to talk from the time of conception, Adam.
We got a lot before conception.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I guess not a lot before conception because Niccolo does happen to get it in before it happens. Mm-hmm. But I think we're both under the assumption that Niccolo didn't know that his wife was pregnant before they left for this trip. Niccolo and Maffeo Polo were brother Venetian merchants. They weren't in a higher class. They did fairly well for merchants. At this point in time, merchants would go out, they would sell their wares, they would do their things, they would get a big score, come back, hang out with the family, live for a little while, and then they would go out again. And that's just the life of a merchant back then. They would establish trading posts in Constantinople, a place called Sudak that I believe was in Armenia, and then the western part of the Mongol Empire in Asia. And they would set off Constantinople before Niccolo's birth, of Marco.
Oh, before Marco's birth.
Yeah, or before Marco. And that's kind of once they leave, they leave. Once they're out of Constantinople, even after that, there's no getting letters back. Mm-hmm. There's no sending a letter back home. There's no, and the shitty part is we don't even know Marco's mom's name.
Yeah.
She was just a woman in history. Mm-hmm. All because the whole account of this is just literally Marco telling some guy in prison about what happened.
Yeah. We don't have this, crazily enough, and this happens much, much later. We don't even have any of this information unless Marco gets himself put in the clink.
Yeah.
And the guy that is in the cell, his cellmate, happens to be a author that was known before penning the Chronicles of Marco Polo as like a royal smut peddler or something like that.
Yeah, he wrote steamy books. Mm-hmm. He wrote 13th century
erotica.
Gray.
Yeah.
13th century 50 Shades of Grey, basically.
Probably not very good, though, if he's in jail.
Well, it's because those goddamn Genoans. The political situation in Turkey was a little bit unstable due to the Venetians supporting the Fourth Crusade that we talked about during the Crusade episode. Fourth Crusade was basically the People's Crusade getting to Venice and not having any money, so Venice goes ahead and is like, well, we'll sponsor you guys to get on the boats to get down to Constantinople. Before you do, we're going to go hit Zara, which is another Christian town, and we are going to basically establish trading rights as Venice and Zara. And the People's Army was like, but after we beat those Christians up, we're headed down to go to the Holy Land and fight, right? Mm-hmm. Venice is like, yeah, sure. So they go take Zara. Then they move down to Constantinople. And the Venetians at that point in time were like, Constantinople's kind of on its last legs. The Byzantine Empire seems to be going through some stuff. I think we can take Constantinople. And they do. So during the Crusades that were supposed to be going after the Muslims to try to liberate Jerusalem, on the Fourth Crusade, they took one Christian city and then they took the great city of Constantinople. Mm-hmm. That was under Venetian control at that point because the People's Army was being paid by Venice to do this kind of stuff. I believe they still ended up going. Go back and listen to the Crusade episode. But as Venetians, they were pretty solid in Constantinople. It was a decent trading area.
Which is probably why they were able to get that far east, just to begin with.
Yeah, they would spend a couple years in Constantinople, and then the heat kind of started to come back on. The Byzantines kind of wanted their shit back. Mm-hmm. And so they're looking around, they're like, okay, well, we can head to this place called Soldatia in Crimea. We're going to head there 1259, 1260. Good timing. Constantinople falls back to the Byzantine Empire in 1261.
Yeah, get well the getting's good.
Yeah, so they missed that. Big issue, though. If you're going home, you're going to be a Venetian that's going to be going through retaken Byzantine territory, and they're probably not going to be too pumped to see you.
Yeah, you can't go into the Holy Land.
Yeah. So we have to continue to push east. Mm-hmm. We have to keep going east. They would stay for about a year in Crimea before they would head off. Couldn't go back west, like we said. There was a civil war that broke out, and it forced them to cross the Tigris River into a place called Bukhara. They would spend another 3 years in Bukhara. As they were in Bukhara, there was a messenger that was sent by Kublai Khan, And I don't know how they met, if they met on the road, if they met in a tavern or something like that. But Kublai's messenger was like, whoa, never seen guys like you this far west or this far east before. Kind of interesting. What do you guys do? Oh, we're merchants. We do a few things here and there. Well, the Khan has never seen a European. He's never seen a Westerner like you guys before. Two round eyes. I think you guys would probably get a kick out of China. We're doing some things over there. I'm sure you've heard of his grandfather, Genghis Khan, whatever you want to call him. He's kind of a big deal. Come back to China, come back to the royal court.
I think he had probably seen some type of like Italians or like foreigners, because he's also, he's Genghis Khan's grandson, which means that at some point, whoever, I can't remember who came right after Genghis Khan, he's coming right after him. He's going to keep like a court established with these type of people. I think in the situation where Kublai Khan now is in power, I think he's probably trying to establish connections like that. So he's probably like, keep your eyes out for any light skins and bring them my way if you happen to find any.
Well, and there's a very interesting history of that with the Mongols. And we're going to talk about kind of how Marco just dotes on Kublai the entire time. And you have to understand that we've gone through 30-ish rules or 30-ish years of Mongol rule in Asia.
No, at this point it was like 60, because I think Genghis established his in like 1206, and then he ruled for a while. Then the other guy came in, and then at this point Kublai's been in power for a little bit during this time period. So it's been about 60, about 60-ish years, maybe 55, which means that the Silk Road that we talked about during that episode, that time period where it was like highly organized and very safe to travel, because bandits were like, oh shit, if we stop the flow of like all these, the Khans love this kind of stuff, keep bringing it in. If we interrupt this at all, bandits were just killed instantly. Like it was very safe. And it also had, I can't remember what the little stations were called, where you could go like, and there were a day's travel apart. Yeah, where you could just rest and actually sleep and everything. They were asking people to use this.
Well, we're 60-ish years pushed away from Genghis Khan. We're 60-ish years away from the just horrific mass murders that are going on.
The taking of the empire,
So now Kublai is looking at the Mongol Empire as, well, we did a lot of killing. We're still going to do killing. Killing is still on the table.
Relax, everybody. We're not going to stop the killing.
But if we can establish trade, we can really make the Mongol Empire something. We can bring new goods to these people in Asia that will then love us because we're bringing them things that they've never seen before.
And the empire, I mean, stretched all the way like into Persia, all the way up into like parts of like a lot of that, what it would be eastern portion of Russia. And wasn't it also broken up a little bit? There was one area that was kind of overseen by the Golden Horde, but everybody, and there was another one down like in Tibet, that kind of area.
Yeah, there were 4 of them. There were 4 kind of Khanate or whatever you would call them.
Khanates or whatever.
Within the Mongol Empire.
All of them owing fealty to Kublai.
Yes.
But you got to kind of understand the brilliance of that. Yeah, you risk someone uprising against you, but at the same time, then you can make sure those areas stay your areas because those guys are in charge of defending them.
Yeah, and you're going to do things like you're going to send them princesses to marry to keep the kind of central Mongol Empire.
I think it's dangling the carrot and being like, maybe your son will be the Khan.
Yeah.
So better stay in this thing.
And that's it too, is you have a family that has outside pressures. And depending on how things go, there could be an overthrow. Kublai was so strong at this point in time, and he was so young and virile and ready to go. And like I say, was still a Khan that liked killing, that it kind of kept some of that under control.
Yeah. One of the things they didn't like about Kublai is he assimilated like a lot into it. He wasn't like going to be like, okay, China needs to do everything the Mongol way. He's like, guys, I kind of like some of the stuff that the Chinese way of doing things. It's kind of more chill and everything. So he started to kind of adopt that. He even, I think, had his capital in what is modern day Beijing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's the setup for it is so brilliant because as the Mongols come down out of their area, they are very much a nomadic people, but as far as the religion goes, the word's going to come to me here in a second, but you have Christian nations that take over other places and kind of try to wipe out the religion. That's
like polytheistic, monotheistic. Is that what you're thinking? Pagan.
not a sorcerer, not a witch. Shamanistic.
okay.
They have a shamanistic religion. They believe in, shamans being able to heal and to be the word of God and all that kind of stuff. Whereas
Natural holy men.
yeah. And so they have kind of a different bent on religion. You have Islam, who is pretty famous for getting in, taking over, installing their religions, less so than Christians that get in and just try to wipe out any form of any other kind of religion. Whereas you have Kublai coming down into Asia and seeing everything. You're seeing Taoists, you're seeing Buddhists, you're seeing kind of these folk Chinese people that literally are just blending all sorts of religions together. There's so many other things that I'm missing as far as that goes. And Kublai realizes, if I take this from these people, we're probably always going to have to fight. If I leave some of this stuff and just install myself as the ruler.
Religious persecution leads to war.
Exactly. If I just let these people believe in whatever the hell they want to believe in, but they keep giving me money, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of a
Taxes
nice
are
way
going
to
to cost
see.
the exact same for these people, regardless of what god they're praying to. And as long as they're paying to the god of gold, that's all that really matters. And it keeps the peace.
And on a given day, if I have some issues with this area, I can go in and kill a bunch of people. They can still have their religion, but I'm still going to kill. So they end up going back with the messenger to go see the Khan.
1266.
Yes, 1266. They land at the seat of the Great Khan in Dadu, which is now modern day Beijing. And Kublai liked these white Christian traders. He was very curious about the religion. He was asking all sorts of questions. I forgot what kind of Christian his mother actually was, but it was some sect of Christianity that believed that Jesus was a person and also a holy entity. So the person that got crucified was Jesus the human, but there's also Jesus the spirit at the same point in time. So he's been introduced to Christianity through his mother. He's kind of curious about this. And being a guy who pretty much lets religion do what they want in China, he's curious to hear kind of more about what the Christians want.
A Nestorian Christian.
Nestorian, yes, that's the word. Thank you. He would ask them to basically go back. His request was for 100 educated men in the church, probably priests, to come over to discuss the merits of the faith, to start teaching Western customs. Weirdly, I don't know, this had to have come from his mother. He wanted a vial of oil from the Holy Sepulchre, which was the practicing church on the area that Jesus was crucified
like
in Jerusalem.
the Mount,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Something like that. I don't know how in the world that he knew about this torch down there that this Holy Sepulchre was, and it had the oil, but he wanted that. This feels like I'm giving you just a bunch of different stuff to go get. And they're like, can you bring, or Kublai goes, can you take this letter to the Pope? And Niccolo and Maffeo are like, yeah, sure, we know the Pope. We can get this letter to him.
You're white and Christian. You've got to know the Pope, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's probably like 18 of you guys.
Which, ironically enough, we'll talk about it here in a second. They knew the Pope.
Yep. They knew a Pope.
Yeah. In order to do this, they were going to be taken back through. They had to bring an ambassador with them, this guy named Kokiti. He was supposed to come back and see. And in doing so, he's like, you're going to have to go through some Mongol-controlled territory. It's going to be rough on you being the color that you are. I'm going to give you something called a piazza. Is it? Or a paisa.
Paisa.
I believe a paisa. And a paisa was literally just this free pass to go wherever you wanted in the Mongol kingdom. It was issued by Kublai. It was a golden tablet, solid gold, 1 foot long, 3 inches, 3 inches. Just a big gold baton. Can you imagine how much 3 inches by 3 inches by a foot would be worth in money today? Just that alone.
That had to also, because it had writing on it and everything, like, or engraving on it. But at the same time, that is the ultimate thing to not be forged.
Yeah.
Who's going to have outside of the Great Khan that much gold in order to make something like that?
Exactly. So there's going to be no duplicates. And the weird thing was, I don't remember what it said word for word, but a lot of it is like, it sounds like the Lord's Prayer, like it's Kublai Khan, hallowed be thy name, thy holy day, that kind of shit.
I feel like he's like in his throne room. He's just like, get these guys their backstage passes. And some guy just has a chest over the side and flips it up and has to fucking muscle. How heavy is that thing?
It's going to be a lot to carry. And as far as these guys go, being merchants, they're very tricky with what they do, because as soon as they get any sort of gold or silver or anything like that, they're trying to turn it into precious gems, because precious gems are 10 times easier to carry than just carrying around a bag full of silver or gold.
Sewing gems into the hems and stuff like that of your jackets and clothes was like a normal thing to do. Just because that, you could get robbed or something like that, but if you could run and get away and you had your jacket on, you could still keep a ton of your wealth with you.
And not to mention, if they're feeling you over and trying to rob you, they're probably not going to start feeling the hems of your jacket to see. If they do feel something, you're like, well, the wind blows my jacket, so I tied rocks in there to keep it held down.
Yeah.
These people weren't exactly super intelligent. But regardless, they go ahead and take back. They say, yeah, dude, we'll go get you 100 educated men. We'll bring you this vial of oil. We will definitely talk to the Pope. Yeah, we'll bring your tidings to the Pope. This is all going to go well. So they take off with their Paisa. Kokitny ends up getting sick, and he leaves them about halfway through on their journey. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do over here. You guys just go ahead and head back.
Sorry, fellas, I'm going to have to call it.
Yeah. They traveled to this Armenian port city of Ias, and they would end up sailing back to, I hate this.
Acre.
I love Acre, but I've heard...
Acre.
Yeah, just a million different ways to say it. Acre sounds right to me. And in Acre, this is where they're going to go into Jerusalem. They're going to end up getting this vial of oil from the Holy Sepulchre. They end up running into a guy who is named Teobaldo Visconti. Shocked that this guy doesn't have, maybe he has some pasta sauce over there or something like that, but Visconti sounds like a name that you could see on a pasta sauce jar.
Yeah, he was an archdeacon, right?
They get back, they talk to Theobaldo, like, hey, we got to get something to the Pope. You're never going to believe this. We just actually sat in Kublai Khan's court. Theobaldo says, well, Pope's dead. Pope's been dead for a little while. Don't know how long you guys been gone. Pope's been gone for a minute. This is 1268 that Pope Clement IV ends up dying. A new pope wouldn't be selected until 1271. This is the longest that the Catholic Church has ever gone without a pope.
It makes sense when you think about it, because nowadays we think, okay, Pope dies. They're already aware that the Pope is going to die, so they're already gathering the College of Cardinals, all that. Everyone flies in on the fucking private jets. At this point, because there's like cardinals and all these guys all over Europe in these areas, if the Pope just died, or if he got sick and died really quickly, it's just like, how long is it going to take for us to gather everybody up? And then how long do we wait? Because some of our guys might die on the way here. Like, what is the amount of time that we give them?
Yeah, do we get a quorum here? Is there just a minimum that we need, and then some guys will keep showing up? I guess it ended up taking so long that the Catholic Church started giving them less and less food to try to force them to make a decision faster. Like, every day they would give them a few less portions.
The people are angry.
just to try to start them out. So they talk to Visconti. He basically gives them a couple letters. He's like, this will have to do for now if you guys are in a pinch. They say, well, I mean, I guess we can probably just go ahead and travel back. It's been a while since we've been to Venice. Maybe we head to Venice. You guys choose a pope. We'll go ahead and hop down to Rome. We'll meet the new pope on a rope. Then we'll head back down here. We'll get the oil for the Holy Sepulchre, and then we'll take off back to Asia.
You guys got to be stoked about this, too. We are literally saying we have an invitation for pushing this shit into China and everything. Like, you guys got to be like foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more hands for you guys. And ironically enough, the guy that they talked to, Theobaldo Visconti...
Can you imagine the erection that the Pope would get if he thought that the Khan would be sending tribute to the church?
It'd be huge. Yeah, I'm sure they probably pulled out the Paisa and Visconti saw it. Was like, what is that all... Can I bite it? Is it all gold? Oh, can I feel it for a second? Just want it in my hands.
Leave me alone with it.
1271, ironically enough, Theobaldo Visconti, the man that they went and talked to, ends up becoming Pope Gregory X. So little did they know they were actually already meeting and talking with the Pope about waiting to come back and talk to the Pope.
Do you think during that process, because the Pope is... Okay, shit, we should have probably figured this out during the Vatican City episode. when we really didn't talk about the popes. When they're selecting a new pope, is it from the College of Cardinals? It is, correct? It's from that group.
I mean, I think it's from like their outer ring, but I don't know because we've had popes from all over the world now. I mean, we got a guy from
Yeah,
fucking
I guess
Chicago
people
in
are
there
put
now.
up for pope, and then the College of Cardinals is what selects them. So, yeah.
Yeah, so Theobaldo being stationed in Jerusalem down in Acre, I mean, him going all the way up to Rome to ascend to the papacy.
I'm just wondering if he came in, he's like, I know some stuff. A couple guys approached me. You guys make me pope.
Yeah.
I will open the door to Asia for us. And they're like, is this guy got the goods? Pulls out the Pisa. Look at this. Like,
You think I'm lying
"You're
about
pope,
this?
Pope.
We'll get another one of these, and we'll turn it the opposite way, or we'll turn it perpendicular. We'll just turn this into a big gold cross that everybody can worship.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So yeah, in the meantime, they're just like, okay, well, if we got to wait for the new pope to be chosen, maybe we head back to Venice. Maybe I go back and try to figure out what my wife and son have been doing.
He doesn't know he has a son.
Yeah, what my wife's been up to.
He ends up getting back, and he finds that his wife had died in childbirth long, long ago.
Was it in childbirth?
Yep.
Okay.
She died in childbirth, and his son, Marco, had been being raised by an aunt and an uncle. I'm not sure if it was maternal or paternal.
Yeah, I would assume probably it has to be from the mother's side, just because we don't hear much about the father's side. But
So he comes home, and of course, there's the story like Marco went down to the docks and everything, and he saw him get off the boat. First of all, how the fuck do you know what this guy looks like?
Yeah.
First of all, you have probably not seen a picture, maybe an old one. Based on how Marco and them come back, Niccolo and Maffeo on this trip probably looked a little bit different as well.
1270, dude. Where's a picture coming from?
Exactly.
It
That's
has to
what
be
I'm
a
saying.
painting, a drawing.
It was probably the aunt and uncle down there being like, and hold on, not sure if it's that one. I think is how I remember him looking. Yeah, that's your dad. So he ends up meeting his 15-year-old son. Finds out, like, that's got to be a crazy thing to find out, like, hey, your wife's dead, but here's your 15-year-old son. And he had already been kind of brought up because they were like a merchant family. I guess they were a little bit more well off. He'd been educated in basically merchant like related skills. So he could read, he could write, he could do math. He had an aptitude, I think, for languages because that, again, was something that merchants had to have if you were going to be dealing with anybody outside of Venice, which, as we're referring to merchants, that's kind of what we're saying is it's these guys that are going outside of Venice to get stuff, not like, hey, I have a stall in the square and I'm selling this stuff. So he meets this kid, and I'm trying to put my mind in kind of the mode of Niccolo. He comes back, he's like, oh shit, we need to get back to the Far East as quickly as possible. Like, we need to go down, we need to meet the Pope. There's so much money to be made over here.
Yeah.
We have this inn, we need these guys. And he's like, I got a 15-year-old kid. That ain't going to stop me from going and doing this. So 2 years after he comes back, he's just like, okay, we've had some time to get to know each other. You really don't have a choice in this. We're going back to the Far East. And guess what, Marco? You're coming along.
This feels like every Tim Allen movie that he ever did with Disney.
Where he's the deadbeat dad.
And then he meets the kid, and he has to take the kid in certain situations, like the
You're thinking Jungle to Jungle.
Jungle to Jungle,
But I could also see him being the deadbeat dad in Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Then there's also the one where they are in the Boy Scout tribe, and he's with Norm from Cheers.
Yeah, I can't remember what that one was.
Hey, how are you, Jack? Fine, thanks. How are you? That one.
I can't remember
Where
that one.
he meets the kid, and they have to go to camp and do all this stuff.
Tim
But
Allen
yeah.
has a lane,
Yeah.
I guess, with Disney.
And it's a very Polo-esque lane. Yeah, I mean, we're back in this beautiful time when Marco Polo was born in 1254, because we don't know the exact date that he was born because time just wasn't really a...
If the father doesn't know, I doubt historically we're going to know.
Yeah, and especially if the mom died in childbirth. Like, who's in charge of telling him when his birthday
They're
is?
more concerned being like, who's going to take this kid?
Yeah. He was either 15 or 16 when they end up meeting. And like you say, they have to wait because they have to get this Pope news. And as soon as they get the Pope news, they're like, okay, this could work out. Do you want to go back with your aunt and uncle? He's like, we just met. You're my dad.
Don't think it was a choice.
You don't think they let him choose?
No, I think he was just like, yeah, you're coming.
There is also the fact that I think that they pretty much knew that traveling through Mongol territory with 100 Christians, or I guess Islamic territory through some of them and into Mongol territory, maybe bring 100 Christians through isn't going to be met well.
I did not think about that aspect because I was about to get to the point when they go down and ask for this. They're like, we're going to give you 2. And we're going to ask for volunteers. And they end up getting, 2, friars?
Dominican friars.
So they get these 2 friars who are going to go with them. They got to be nervous.
Oh, yeah.
At this point, they're like, I don't think you know how serious this guy is. He's literally in charge of all of Asia. And he asked for 100 guys. We got the oil. I mean, we kind of, we took care of that. We need the 100 guys because I don't think 2's going to cut it. But again, the allure of that money and that wealth that they saw over there, they're just like, but we're still going to go with the 2 guys.
Yeah. Because at the same time, you're going to be crossing through areas that those Mamelukes, those guys that you've been fighting during the Crusades, you might run into them. And if they see 100 Christians, there's a good chance the Mamelukes
Hard to hide 100-person train versus it's at this point going to be 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they pop down. They meet Pope Gregory again after his ascension to the papacy in 1271. They get the notes from him. They pick up the 2 Dominican friars for this journey back to Kublai. They then go back down to Acre. They would pick up the oil for the Holy Sepulchre, and they would begin this trek across Persia.
I just see them having the conversation. So the archdeacon, his name isn't Gregory, but he takes Pope Gregory.
Yep.
I just see them going down and have this meeting. He's like, hey, do you remember us? He's like, yeah, you're the Kublai Khan guys. And they're like, yeah. So, I mean, we're getting ready to head back there. And we, you seemed excited. You got in the Pope. We're going to need that Pisa back that you showed to everybody to get elected Pope. We're going to need those 100 guys. And he's like, listen, fellas, this Pope thing, it's a lot more than I was expecting it to be. I can't just give you 100 priests. Like, these guys you think we're just cranking these guys out?
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to go ahead and give you 2, and hopefully that'll work.
I mean, I think that it kind of works out, and we're going to see as they go and run into Kublai. It's not that he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. He could give a shit about these 100 wise men showing up. They would travel via, I think they're called Bactrian camels, the 2 humpers through Persia. And the camels are so important crossing this terrain because they go so long without water.
I think they said 3 days.
Yeah, you need something to move.
Which, something came across my feed where someone was preparing camel hump. Yeah, it did not look appealing. It's just like a white fat.
Yeah, the only time I can even think of people eating it is Rush Hour when Jackie Chan asked for it. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, that doesn't seem like the part of the camel I'd like to eat.
Camel's hump. I just remember that part. Yeah.
I'm going after leg. I'm going after neck on a camel. The hump is probably like the 3rd or 4th to last.
You want to be identified and be like, I understand meat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you have this 17-year-old boy who's seeing the world for the first time and really getting out there.
I want to try to have people focus on this aspect. When he first shows up, when he's taking this, like Adam said, he's 17 years old when he starts this. He's seeing everything for the first time, and he just grows over the course of 24 years.
Yeah.
All into this. That has got to be the most insane. I'm so glad we have this information because, this is a teenager's account of going into just the most batshit situation you could think of. We're going to meet the Emperor of China.
Yeah, it's going to be you, my uncle, or me, my uncle, and my dad that are the only 3 people in Venice that have met this guy.
And I've known these dudes for 2 years.
Yeah, they just met both of them.
Yeah.
And now they're taking me to go meet the most powerful man in Asia. This is nuts. This is insane. And not to mention, if the boy hadn't hit puberty...
The grandson of the dude that killed, a quarter of the Earth's population.
That guy, that's the guy we're going to meet. How do you even explain that? How does Niccolo explain that to his son? You can't until you just actually get there. So, the boy, again, 17 years old. Hopefully he's gone through puberty. If he didn't, he definitely went through it on his way into China. As they got through Persia, Marco would write down in his journals that the Persian women are the most beautiful women that he's ever seen before in his entire life. He becomes absolutely enamored with the women over there. Hilarious, because there's a chance that after they keep going, he has to cross it out and be like, now the Afghani women
This
are the
is
most
a
beautiful
journal
women.
written by a 17-year-old dude who's just horny as shit and seeing foreign women for the first time. And he's just like, I like this. And he's like, I like this now. I didn't even know this existed.
Well, and you have your new bachelor father, Niccolo, probably out there on the prowl as well, pointing these things out. You're just kind of buddies at that point, I'm assuming. There's no real fatherly relationship you got with
It kind of does feel like that, yeah.
It has to. So they would end up they would get through Persia.
I think they were attacked in Persia. There's some accounts that say he was attacked in Persia by like some bandits.
Were they Mongol or were they?
No, it was something. It wasn't Tartars. I'm trying to remember it was just a bandit tribe. I can't remember what it was. They end up getting away, but I want to say that this is where the priests end up turning back, right?
Yeah, they go ahead and head back. They've seen enough of this new world.
So now it's literally just the two uncles and Marco at this point.
Yeah, and you got a funkle that's your dad, and then you have an uncle that's, God, I forgot his name, but Maffeo.
Yeah.
Sweet name. They continue on. And they're going to continue on through Persia. They end up getting to the port of Hormuz, which I believe is between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it was like it was a major port city where people would like actually sail out across the Indian Ocean to go to India and then also maybe around to like China.
Mm-hmm. And as soon as they get there, Niccolo looks at the boats and he's like, shit.
Where are the nails?
We don't need nails. We have wooden pegs.
And coconut husks.
Yeah.
To try to keep it bound together.
What about the sap to try to seal everything up? No. We just jam coconut husks in there. These boats are going to work.
They looked at this and they're like, so the Indian Ocean, the weather is not great.
Tough. Rough.
And there's also a ton of pirates. So we will not be using any of these boats. We're going to actually head back on the land route because, again, Silk Road, if they get to a certain point along the Silk Road, it's going to be, easy going at that point.
And not to mention, we're traveling through on these silk routes holding a paisa. Mm-hmm. So if we run into anybody that's not a bandit in any city that we stop at, we show them the paisa in Mongol-controlled areas. We get anything we want.
What does Marco think his dad did
on
this first trip? They're just rolling into these places and they pull out this giant piece of gold and they're just like, anything you want. What can we get you? And the dad's just got to be looking back at the kid being like, pretty cool, right?
Yeah, we're going to see the guy that gave this to me. So they chose the Silk Routes, and I believe the Silk Routes we don't get this story had they taken those boats across the Indian Ocean because things were going to get rough.
They go through modern day Afghanistan, and Marco actually comes down with something that...
for that, Turkey.
Yeah.
They get into Turkey. Marco is super excited to be in Turkey because Mount Ararat is where Noah's Ark is supposed to have landed.
Oh, that's right.
And immediately he's like, okay, take me to the mountain. Let's go see Noah's Ark. And everybody in Turkey that knows that it's kind of bullshit, like, well, I don't know. Marco ends up writing in his diary that the most disappointing part of Turkey was not being able to see Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Like we're still so close to this story that they just automatically think like, yeah, no, Turkey, Mount Ararat, where you can just pull up and we can see Noah's Ark from fucking forever ago.
Where's the boat?
Yeah. Where's the boat
It's up there.
that held two of every animal from every continent, every part of the world? Again, one of these days we're going to have to do a Noah's Ark episode because I want to get into all of what it possibly could have been.
We'll have to match that up with like another biblical story or something like that.
All of the myths that we've seen doing this podcast about these different flood stories and these narratives, they all have to have come from something. And if it's from the Ice Age and everything filling up, it's just so curious to me. But yeah, they continue on into, was it...
modern day Afghanistan at that point.
Yes. Well, in Afghanistan, Marco gets sick. They think that he contracted malaria, which doesn't make any sense because there weren't a whole lot of mosquitoes in Afghanistan at the time. It's kind of believed to be that it was a TB flare-up, that he may have contracted tuberculosis as a child and all of this traveling that they're doing is probably just not good on his immune system. They would be there for a year. Which, again, the span of time that it takes them to get to Asia and get back is just bonkers.
The Pisa thing is because I know Marco got one when he was there,
The Pisa, yeah.
but I forgot about the Pisa that like Maffeo and Niccolo had. And when these merchants who probably came, they came back with some stuff, so they were, funded and everything. But then being like, oh yeah, he was there for a year and they were just hanging out. Of course they were able to hang out. They could just fucking stay wherever they wanted to.
They don't have any expectations. There's no king that's telling them to get back. The Pope is probably like, I don't think these guys are going to make it back. So what's the big deal?
Kublai is just like, whatever happened to those one guys?
Uh-huh.
When did I give them a Pisa? I can't remember. He's like, I'll figure it out later.
We're in this world of mystery where these guys are in the middle of this journey, and nobody at the beginning of the journey and nobody at the end of the journey knows if they're still alive or anything about them. I'm sure when the Dominican friars got back to Gregory, he's like, what are you guys doing here? Like,
They were killed by bandits.
Yeah, they were fine. They were safe. They might come back. Who knows? But it takes a year, and supposedly part of that year was maybe 17-year-old Marco had met some opium that he enjoyed and was trying to wean himself off the opium.
They had to take him high up in the mountains where there was no opium. They're like, this will get rid of the TB. And he's like, it's actually just a year-long detox.
Yeah, this is Jack Black and Tropic Thunder. They're just trying to get him cleaned up. They do believe that taking him up into the mountains in Afghanistan did kind of help because of the cleaner air. I'm not sure how dirty the air could be with so few people at the time, but maybe it was getting him out of the dirt and dust and
It was
sand.
getting them up into the air that didn't have as much humidity and moisture because that would allow because that's
Dry
the
him out a
whole
little
thing.
bit.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we're into these big mountains, these big giant mountains after going through Central Asia.
The Pamir?
Yes, the Pamir Mountains. What was it? The roof of the world?
Yeah, so it's the mountain range that includes the Himalayas, correct?
I believe it's a part of the Himalayan chain.
Part of the Himalayan chain, which also includes Mount Everest.
Yeah.
So largest mountains that they've ever seen before, and they're riding kind of between, it's like that mountain range and then desert, like the edge of the Gobi Desert, right?
Think about it this way. Where they're coming from in Venice, they may have never even gone up to see the Alps. So this could literally be like the first real mountains that they're
And I mean,
ever
Italy
seeing.
does have some mountains, like in like the interior of Italy.
Yeah.
But not like this.
Not Himalayan. They said, Marco said that it got really tough to breathe. He didn't like that. He always felt like he needed water because the lack of oxygen and everything was literally sucking the moisture out.
You're up on the step, right? At this point, that's why they called it like the, what'd you call it?
The roof of the world.
The roof of the world. It's because they're up on a step.
It's like a plateau, I believe. Yeah.
And it's insanely tall. It's like, we talked about this during the Everest episode. Everest, when you look at it, you're like, I've seen mountains that go from the ground up to that point. So from the way you're looking at it at base camp, it doesn't look like the biggest mountain. It's the tallest from sea level, and it's the tallest of a huge chain of mountains that are constantly going up. So when they get up here, yeah, they're not at Everest levels, but they're still on this step that is really high enough that it's hard to keep fires going at night because there's that little oxygen.
Yeah. That they said that there was just such a lack of wildlife up there because everything needs oxygen. And of course, once you go through the Pamir Mountains and you get through this cross, then you have to drop back down into this place called the Takamaklan Desert. And the Takamaklan Desert is not the Gobi Desert. It's not that bad, but it's still pretty rough. Rough going that instead of...
If a desert has a name,
Yeah.
probably tough to get through it.
So they end up just skirting their way around the Takamaklan Desert. Like instead of just taking straight across, it's 3 months. They end up circling around it.
Why would we risk going through the desert when we have our black card? That if anyone messes with us, we just show them this. We can stay near civilization. We don't have to worry about... There's still some bandits, but I mean, very few at this point.
Yeah, well, and you're going literally from oasis to oasis through these deserts. There's not bandits that are hanging out in the desert in between.
Yeah.
Like the desert's the most dangerous thing.
There were
that you gotta
patrols
worry
of
about.
Mongols
Yeah.
that were being... that would patrol the areas.
There was a place called Tangut, I believe, that was in Armenia that they had run through. I forgot about this, but Marco makes notes of this because it's the first time that he's ever seen cremation. He doesn't really have an understanding of like burning the bodies instead of burying them.
Yeah.
And he also writes in his journal that he finds out that the women of this Tangut area are prized for their experience. So a virgin woman in this town is worthless. The men find the value in these women by however many partners that they've had. And, of course,
Very sex
the
positive
experience.
culture.
Yes. Very cool. It was said that he wrote down that you were supposed to leave like a trinket or something like that the woman could attach to themselves to then explain to the other men, like, this was a trader or a merchant that came through that I had sex with. And again, 17-year-old Marco, 18-year-old Marco at this point in time is going crazy. Those hormones are raging. He just wants to get to the next town to see what's next.
I don't care how many trinkets she has. I don't care. I've been riding with my uncle and my dad.
Why do you guys want to go around the desert? It's just going to be faster to go through the desert. Let's go through the desert. I need to get to those other women. They would end up stopping at this town called Laub that was in between the Takamaklan Desert and then the Gobi Desert, which, again, Takamaklan, pretty bad deal. Gobi Desert's a whole nother element. And after they end up leaving through there, they get to the Gobi, and it takes them 30 days because they said that the Gobi Desert, he said the Gobi Desert to walk end to end would take a year. And at the smallest point, at the skinniest point of the Gobi Desert was 30 days. And that was the route that they took over the desert. And they have this thing, I think we might have talked about it during the Great Wall episode, called the Singing Winds. And this just blew Marco's mind, and it kind of made him go a little nuts because he writes that he just hears this singing going on, and it's literally just the wind as it's pushing the sand down the dunes. It's making like different musical notes
As the rocks grind against each other. Like, yeah. This is going to be off topic, but do you have a white noise machine? Do you listen to white noise at night or anything?
TV.
Okay.
TV till I fall asleep with the sleep timer.
I'll be laying there before I go actually fall asleep. And I swear I can actually hear sometimes like a voice. I can't tell what it's saying, but it sounds like a fucking voice within the pitch of the white noise. And if I catch it, it's not all the time. But if I'm laying there and I catch it, I'm just like, well, I can't sleep for the next 10 minutes.
Is there something in the room with me?
Is it a fucking ghost? Yeah.
Somebody trying to talk to me through the white noise.
I've seen Poltergeist.
So yeah, they get through Gobi after a month. They get to this place called Dunhuang that's on the other side of the Gobi. They spend another year there, probably for more sickness within this party. Because again, this isn't just these three family members that are palling
booty
around.
sickness. They're getting into all these areas where it's a new thing of women, and they're just like, we'll never leave.
They're feeling everything out. At the same time, they have to travel in a caravan because, again, there's safety in numbers with these things. So it's not just these three that are traveling. They've hooked up with another group of people that they're traveling through with. Another merchants, what have you. They're passing off from town to town because, as we talked about during the Silk Roads episode, merchants basically just had like a stretch of the Silk Road that they would travel back and forth. So they're moving through. They get to Dunhuang. They spend the year there. And after that, they're kind of like, well, shit, maybe we need to start taking care of some of this stuff, and end up establishing a trade hub, a small trade hub in this place called Kashgar that was already this big trading city. And it was just probably basically them like handing over their cards and saying, if you need anything to head back into Europe, we have a system to be able to do this. We can bring our merchants. We can even come pick it up from you and take it this way. Like
If you're ever in Venice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're basically just building these relationships as they're going because, again, while they're on this quest to go see Khan, they still have a business. They're still
That's why they're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would hit multiple towns before they would finally reach the Khan's winter palace in Shangdu. Shangdu is what it's called. We know it as Xanadu. We know it as Xanadu. Xanadu, unfortunately, we do not know if it exists because this was a time during the Yuan dynasty that the Mongols ruled China. And as far as the Chinese go, they want to try to minimize the Yuan dynasty as much as possible. So we don't know where a lot of this stuff exactly was. Shangdu was incredible at this point in time. Marco talks about 21 at the time. They end up rolling onto Kublai. So funny, I'm sure, when they walk in, and probably everybody around the court was like, what are you guys doing here? And Niccolo just holds up the paisa. It's like, take me to the Khan. We're going to the Khan. I got this. I got to go see him. He's expecting 102 of us to show up.
Didn't he come out on an elephant? On one of the documentaries of the podcast, they are, because again, through this area, or Xanadu, what's the other name for it?
Chengdu.
Of course, it's going to be heavily guarded. This is his summer place. So they're approaching and they get picked up by like a patrol. And as they're coming up on the city, someone spots them and the gates open and this like basically like a horde or like cavalry comes out, and behind the cavalry, an elephant comes out. And as the riders come up to him, they tell him who they are, show him the paisa, and then they say a man gets down off the elephant, and that man is the Great Khan. That would be the fucking entrance right there.
And again, Niccolo and Maffeo have seen the song and dance. Now 21-year-old Marco sees an elephant for probably, most likely, the first time, unless they saw one coming over, which I think they were more Asian elephants.
Yeah, but they were close to India. They might have seen them.
Potentially.
They had the paisa. They could see whatever. Yeah. What do we want to do today? Do we want to go to the zoo?
He ends up riding out to meet them.
He's never seen a Khan get down from an elephant. And an elephant decked out by the Khan.
Well, he sees this great smiling man that starts talking to his uncle and his father, and he knows what they're talking about because Marco spoke 5 different languages. Mm-hmm. He spoke Latin, I'm sure from Venice. He also spoke Mongolian. He spoke Persian. He spoke
Arabic, and
Turkish. So he's picked up all of these different languages either through kind of his merchant training or just along the way. Because, again, they've had 4 years to study these languages as you're going through these places.
He finds out that Marco is this young kid. He's educated. He speaks their language and just pretty much takes a shine to him.
Well, and the first thing he asked Niccolo and Maffeo was, where you guys been?
Yeah.
Like, he was so curious because it's been, at this point, if it took them 4 years to get there and there was another like 3 years of them waiting for the new Pope to get there, or 2 years or whatever, it's been 6-7 years since he's seen these two dudes and he just met them briefly.
Yeah. So they leave Venice in 1271. 1275 is when they finally get to Kublai's summer home. And so, yeah, of course, where have you guys been? Them trying to explain the Pope situation, Kublai's had to been like, okay, hold on a second. So you guys have to have like, after the guy dies, you have to have all these other guys join around to pick the other guy. And they're like, yeah. They're like, we kind of do that, actually. We kind of do a version of that. I get it. But why? How does it take you guys so long?
Yeah, Kublai's probably like, how many people died during the Great War to find the new Pope? Nobody?
Yeah, you must have had a hell of a war to decide.
No, man. Fairly bloodless. I can't say that nobody died while they were doing this, but it was probably pretty bloodless. So after they get that done, Kublai's eyes train down on Marco. He didn't know Marco was coming because Niccolo didn't even know that he had a son.
Yeah.
And he goes, who's this young man? And Niccolo goes, this is my pride and joy. I met him fucking 4 years ago. This is my son. The strapping young lad's name is Marco, and he is at your service.
He's your man. Just
immediately tries to get in the Khan's good graces by just hanging his son out to dry.
I brought you a white slave, sir, who speaks your language amongst others. He's like, Dad, he's like, shut the fuck up.
All right. Before we jump into his time in China, we want to take a bathroom break?
Sounds good.
Cool.
Well, hey there, all you sexy historians. How you guys doing?
It is time for
socials.
Where can they find us on Instagram?
If they want to follow us, they can find us at Historically High Pod on Instagram.
That goes the same for Threads as well. You can also find us on Twitter.
Ooh, tell them about Twitter.
Historically High. That's Historically HI on Twitter.
And if you want to email any of your comments or suggestions, where can they find us at, Adam?
At Historically High Podcast at gmail.com.
Gmail. All right, and back to the show. Okay, the Khan likes what he sees. Enough to be like, okay, young man, you are actually going to be one of my emissaries, which I'm sure he had plenty. And you're also, did he start out kind of an emissary with the tax collector as part of it? Was that part of the deal?
He had so many different little roles. He may have been an emissary. He may have been a tax collector at times. He was a facilitator in some of the salt trade. He was a diplomat at some points.
And the reason that he was a tax collector is because Kublai was like, I know my people. Shady as shit. I don't trust them. I actually want, because he wanted either like Italians, he wanted any type of foreigners to actually do the tax collecting for him.
Because they had no loyalty.
Yeah.
They didn't walk into an area that used to be theirs and feel bad not collect the taxes. He wanted somebody that had no conscience for any of these people whatsoever.
Well, he wanted somebody that had loyalty to him based on the fact that he was the boss.
Yeah. But as far as that goes, Kublai was very, very smart about a lot of things that he did. And again, I cannot stress enough that this guy was just a murderous, murderous man.
Yes, but like, I'm trying to think of how to separate that. I'm not making an excuse for it. What I'm saying is he's not savage in the sense of intelligence. He's very he's very educated. He's very smart. He's very clever, but you know what? He's ruthless is what it is. He's merciless. He's not I don't think necessarily bloodthirsty, but if he's going to do something, it's going to be to the extreme measure.
He's just cold.
Yes.
But at the same time, he also is like a very personable person. What I was getting at was what Kublai would do would be he would basically have like his armies stationed in certain villages around pretty much everywhere to make sure that everything was going wrong or that nothing was going wrong. At the same time, he put them on rotations so that way the army would never get empathetic towards the people and potentially be able to be talked into an uprising.
Yeah.
As long as he kept them on these rotations.
Can't have these guys building families, setting roots down here. Yeah.
And building roots and maybe feeling something for these people to want to try to rise up.
That makes sense.
So he's just very calculated with what he's doing. And luckily for Marco, for the next 17 years of his life, he basically just gets to come back and tell Kublai all of the stories that he wanted to.
I think that's one of the reasons, too, why he likes him so much, is he's used to sending these guys out, and he's like, this shit is so dry to read. Like, I only have so much stuff I need to keep apprised of my empire and everything. But when I have to just read reports that read this many bushels of grain came out of here, the populace is happy, this is what their town looks like. And all of a sudden, Marco comes back and he's like, you would not believe the trim in this place and what they can do. And he's and it's not just that, of course, but he's also detailing. He's
probably most of it.
Yeah, probably most of it. But he's also describing this stuff in more of a storyteller's way. And so compared to all this other stuff, Kublai's reading this. He's like, I gotta get this kid traveling all the way around. I want my whole area to be described by him. I want to find out all the sexual positions different provinces are trying and different blowjob techniques and everything.
I think there was a little bit of it too, where maybe Marco's naivete towards Kublai was probably something good, because everybody that's been in Kublai's court's probably seen Mad Kublai, right? They've seen what he's capable of.
They've seen him pull someone's ears off their head.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Marco, at the same time, so every report that they write has every piece of factual data that they think Kublai would like, just very meticulous. Whereas Marco doesn't know what he's looking for, so he's out there, and instead of just describing that this area got hit by a typhoon in this season, he's talking about their recovery efforts and how the people are coming together for a common goal to take care of everyone.
He's still getting the facts, so it's all useful, which is why he can trust me. He's like, all right, man, I'm going to have you just travel all over for the next 17 years. And the way this is structured within his chronicles, his story, whatever you want to call it, is they kind of, he'll travel to multiple places multiple times, the same place multiple times. But it's not laid out like in this year he went here and this is what he kind of saw. And then it'll go, this is the next place he saw, this is the next place. it'll talk about all of his experience, his cumulative experiences in that place. So that's why the timing is a little weird, because he could have, telling this story that happened 2 years apart and then 4 years apart.
Yeah.
But it's all to describe it, because that's how what he's telling the story of.
An amalgamation of travels, basically, to these different places. And we've talked about it quite a bit. Polo claims that most of this stuff was firsthand accounts of basically everything as notes. It's not true. Definitely not true. No matter what you say about Marco Polo, the man was not 100% in front of all of these things that he wrote down. He certainly punches a lot of stuff up. He's dog shit at counting things, which is funny because Kublai seemed to like to know the numbers, but this guy was just out there closing his eyes and pointing at stuff.
I don't know if it was necessarily that he was bad at counting things. I think he just bumped up the numbers in order to create a sense of awe.
But at the same time, he's taking an awe-striking number and then just bringing it up another level.
He is, but that has nothing to do with what he's reporting to Kublai. Because he'll say something like, this river had 1,000 ships on it. He's not going to Kublai and saying hey, the river had 1,000 ships. He's like, I'm just telling this shit to the other Gwailos.
Yeah, and I think you talked about it when we were studying. He has a penchant for probably counting the first 100 that he sees, and then maybe trying to count how many deep it could possibly be. And instead of it being 526 ships, he's like, I count 100. It's probably 1,000.
I can only see 100 because there's so many of them. So there's got to be 10 times that many behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very similar. Most likely, a lot of this stuff he does see. And again, I'm giving him a lot of leniency here because
it's a fucking good story.
Yeah, and that's it. I love facts. I told Chris that this episode kind of made me a little sick because I love timelines, and I
got that text, and I was just like, what are you talking about, man? I'm like, this is fantastic. We just get to talk about this stuff in his story.
But there's a comfort in being able to line stuff out.
We have done enough stuff where it's so meticulous to have to do dates and times and things like that. This is like not wearing underpants, man.
It is. We're freeballing this one for sure. Probably a lot of the stuff that's in Marco Polo's travels was third-hand accounts that he was hanging around the royal court. Somebody else witnessed this. Stories that we'll talk about that happened before the times that the Polos even got to Kublai Khan and got to Xanadu. Just kind of some interesting stuff. But again, you're running it through a very creative mind in Marco Polo that wrote this down. And then the filter is this smutty writer from Pisa that's going to put this on paper.
You're not really presenting a lot of legitimacy arguments here.
but it's just fun. And if you want to continue to step on the legitimate arguments, this was written at a time when mass publishing wasn't a thing. So literally the way that this book got copied was one guy copying it into another book, and then translations was another guy copying it from one language into another language.
Yeah, that's true.
So much is lost or whittled down or dumbed down that it's kind of tough to take it. But at the same time, the story is still good to this day.
Yeah. And it has been the things that he's described, the places and everything like that. It's been looked into and then also looked into the history of this place. So they're like, he was obviously here because he described this. Because there's even arguments that Marco Polo never made it to China. And they're like, he described all these types of things that nobody that wasn't going all over China would have the knowledge to know.
Yeah. At this point in time in history, all this stuff will be known, and it's known now. At this point in time in history, there was maybe a handful of people that could have known any of that.
At the same time, too, aren't they like, this dude was gone. Where was he hanging out for 24 years if he wasn't literally getting to go everywhere in China?
Yep. If we can establish that he was a real person and he was just gone for 24 years. So again, a lot of this stuff might not be true, but the way that he writes, it's fantastic. Marco describes Kublai's palace as the pleasure dome. And I can totally understand why. He also describes it as the best that ever was. There were walls that were covered in gold and silver. There was a large hall that he said could accommodate 6,000 people for dinner. This palace had 400 rooms in it. I can't even... There's hotels having 400 rooms is a decent-sized hotel, I think.
And that's just the hotel.
Yes.
They're like not trying to do anything else.
Exactly. And this thing had a ballroom attached to it. I'm assuming a ballroom. They could hold, I guess, a dining hall.
Yeah.
6,000 people. All of the silverware is the finest china, or all of the plates are the finest china. All of the silverware is silver or gold. You have these jewel-encrusted goblets. This place is absolutely beautiful, not to mention the silk drapes that are hanging around, all of the silk tapestries, this fine Chinese silk that the Byzantines snuck in to steal the worms to try to bring them back. The opulence of this place is incredible.
He's like, Kublai, why? I got to ask about the silk. Why is it silk? I mean, it's hard to clean. Why is there so much silk here? He's like, sometimes I get really high and I just walk around this place touching everything. And then I just replace it the next day, man. You want to do it with me tonight?
Kublai sends his tailor over to Marco Polo to get him measured up for some silk boxers, and then he's like, "I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I get this. This feels.
I will never doubt the great Khan again."
A velvet bag full of puppy ears. To go along with that, pretty cool, but also I'd love to know this grand hall, this great palace might reside. The footing of this might reside under where the Forbidden City is. Mm-hmm. Because, again, the Chinese government decided that we probably need to erase the Yuan dynasty, so we're going to build the Forbidden City probably 100 years later, something like that.
Yeah, it was the next dynasty that stepped into power, was just like, okay, and smooth it over. Like, this palace is pretty huge. Can we just, like, bury over it? Because knocking this thing down is going to take a lot of work. Mm-hmm.
But if we build a forbidden city on top of it that's forbidden to go, maybe we'll cover this up. Maybe this will work out.
They've got a goddamn tunnel into that. It's still intact. And they just go down there and they're like, this is fucking Kublai Khan's palace.
Yeah, they go sleep in his bed for strength, like to feel strong. Marco describes his bridge over the Yongding River in Beijing, and he described it to not perfect. We're doing things in a matter of paces and arm lengths back then, so you're not going to get anything perfect. I believe he also missed 2 arches, but he basically described this thing to like 95% accuracy of going over this bridge. Now, again, you can't tell me that this guy described something so close and he wasn't there to witness it.
Yeah.
So this just lends credence to it, and now it carries his name. It's the Marco Polo Bridge, and right outside of Beijing, or in Beijing. Like, that's nuts. And there again, the people of Beijing had to recognize Marco Polo being there. So if it's good enough for them to name a bridge,
China hates foreigners.
Yeah, I'm sure they're probably not too pumped with it.
Understandably so. We've done several episodes where we've been like, oh man, China gets fucked with a lot. No wonder they just don't want to have anyone else.
Yeah, but he's got his own bridge in Beijing. Also, oddly enough, he has like sheep that they had run into at some point that are called Marco Polo sheep. So to his name, he's got a book, a sheep, or some sheep, and a Chinese bridge. What an odd collection of...
That was just, again, that was him and the Khan just fucking chilling out one night. And he's like, you know what? I like you, Mark. I really do. I'm going to name a sheep after you. And he's like, okay. And he's like, no, you don't get it. Like, sheep are like really important to us. It'll be cool. So, like, everyone will know Marco Polo sheep. He's like, thank you, great Khan.
Which one? The white one. The pasty one, like your face.
Yeah. He does it as a fucking dig. He's just like, we're going to name something after you, an animal. He's like, oh, what is it? It's like, I like the falconry shit. Is it like a falcon? He's like, it's that white thing over there just eating in the grass.
It's the only other white thing besides you and your
No, they're totally
uncles.
cool, man. You can like shave off their fur and make all kinds of shit with it. It's kind of rough to the touch.
Yep.
It's kind of the anti-silk.
Not silk, but it'll make some stuff. This is where the tall tales get really fun for me. He would spend 3 years in Yangzhou as a tax collector, and he claimed during that point in time that there was some sort of power struggle in Yangzhou to where the Yangzhou, maybe, I think Yangzhou sounds better, to where the ruler of that area was indisposed, and he claims that he was the governor of Yangzhou for the 3-year time period that he spent in this city.
Who's to say he wasn't?
I'm going to say the fact that Khan wouldn't let some white tax collector run one of his cities, one of his very successful cities.
And again, you have to view this through. So he's there for 17 years.
Yep.
So he's 17 when he gets there. I don't
21 when he gets there. 17 when they take
21.
off.
So he's there until he's 38. I'm trying to view this through the lens of being like, man, is this like when he's 23 or 24 and the Khan's like, I can't have a 24-year-old Guilo running one of my cities. Or is this 36-year-old Marco and he's like, fuck, is Marco in town? Yeah, just have fucking Marco handle it for a little bit.
Not a chance. There's just no
saying.
way.
Okay, anyway, so he was or was not governor of this city.
The city was located on the Grand Canal, and Chris and I talked about this last night. I believe we mentioned the Grand Canal a little bit in the Opium Wars. Grand Canal is the largest man-made waterway in the world.
Yeah, it is larger than the Suez, the Panama, and the what's the other Erie together.
It's a pretty big man-made waterway, pretty wide.
It pretty much connects North China and South China.
Well, we're also talking about Kublai Khan, the merchant mind over the deathly mind of being like, we're going to kill a lot of people building this canal. But at the same time, this canal is going to make shipping so much easier.
Which also, I think from that military mindset, he's like, it's going to help the, commerce, things like that. We're just going to have people getting richer, which means I'm getting richer. Yeah. At the same time, if something happens up in the north and I got to get a lot of guys there fast, I can get them up there much faster in a canal than marching all my guys up there.
It's the right way to go. It was right up by Nanjing too, which we've talked about Nanjing, not directly, but quite a bit about some things that went on that were pretty awful there. He would visit this place called Karakoram, and it was the old Mongol capital up in Mongolia before Kublai would move it down to Xanadu. I think there was another place. They had a winter and a summer palace, basically. There were these two capitals.
Yeah, the summer palace was... I had it written down.
Was that Chengdu? Was that Xanadu?
Chengdu.
And then what was the winter palace? Was it Dedu?
Hold on. No, the winter palace was Khanbalik, which is modern-day Beijing. Khanbalik is modern-day Beijing, and the other one is Chengdu.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes some sense. So while he's up in Karakoram, he's looking at basically like the old Mongol capital, and he realizes that just because you move the capital of the dynasty doesn't mean that city moves along with it. He sees that it's still kind of the historical center of the empire.
Yeah, because it's closer to natural Mongolia. And,
exactly, the
homeland.
And I will say that the Mongols are definitely not really a blind spot, but I haven't really looked into them. Part of the reason I haven't looked into them is because they just felt like they were kind of behind the times as far as but they weren't.
No.
And it's just a misconception that they're up there in the steppes and it's so cold, and as a nomadic people that are always moving, you think that they're
not smart enough to start an agrarian society.
Yeah.
It's just the environment they live in. They've become intelligent enough to know exactly how to thrive in that environment. And their advancements always seem to go ahead and lean toward the military aspect, which is how they were so successful. But then when they came into China, they're just like, all this shit that you guys used against us that we really liked and was effective, we're just going to learn how to do that stuff, and we're going to keep it going because now we control this area.
Yeah, they said Mongols were born on a horse. Mongolians were born on a horse. Like it would either be learn to ride or take your first steps, or kind of like the first two things that you do in life. And that's how they became so successful, was because a Mongol on a horseback is probably one of the more dangerous things.
I can't wait for you to listen to that.
The Dan Carlin?
And the Wrath of the Khans.
I'm very, very excited for that. He was in Karakoram. Yeah, it was the former capital. He talked about it still being the historical center. He would visit a place called Hangzhou that he would refer to as the city beyond dispute, the finest and the noblest in the world. He ain't back at home. This isn't Venice. He's been to Rome. He's been to Jerusalem. He's been to some places. He's been to Constantinople.
There's a reason why it's, why it is, because Hangzhou was the former capital of the previous Song dynasty, correct?
Yes.
So that place is already going to be opulent as shit, combined with then what the Khan probably does, puts into it a little bit. I would imagine places like that they liked them. They were like, we don't want to sack this city. We want to keep this place nice. Yeah,
we want to, this needs to be turnkey. We don't need to come in here and rebuild anything.
I want to come visit here and not be depressed. Yeah.
Exactly.
And also, I don't want all these people rebelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Polo would spend a lot of time on the water when he was in Hangzhou because there were lakes and there were canals basically just everywhere, all over, to where he kind of felt like he was back in Venice.
You know when else he had to sleep on the water?
Yeah. It was just...
No. Do you know what other situation he was forced to... Well, I guess in this situation, he probably was willing. During his travels, I don't know if you have it in here, when he was traveling around... Oh, wait. Is Vietnam coming up?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. It's when he gets to Vietnam. Yeah.
Actually, I think it's just about next.
He's sleeping on the boats.
Yeah, we're into this pretty high. Polo, as a Westerner, was the first person to document Myanmar, Burma, Mien, whatever you want to call it. It was Burma and Mien back then. I think now we know it as Myanmar. It was the capital city their capital city was the Begans. I believe they were called pagans, I think is what the people of the area were that were fighting back against the Mongol to stop the rule from happening. He just describes the city of Began as this vast landscape with 10,000 temples and religious structures.
I want to say this was the place where...
The pagodas?
No, there was a reason why he was allowed there. And they were still in it wasn't a conflict. I think the Mongols had tried to take them over and they had fought back a little bit and they were like, hey, okay, just be under us and we'll kind of let you guys keep doing your own thing. But they technically weren't I'm trying to think how they described it, like a satellite country of the Mongolian Empire.
It was enough so that there was this big giant gold pagoda and a big giant silver pagoda, and it was placed over the grave of one of their ancient rulers. And as they were going through and sacking the city and taking some things, word got back to Kublai that these two pagodas were there, and they told him about where they were. They're like, do you want us to bring them back to the capital city? You want us to bring them back to Xanadu? And he goes, no, I think we should probably keep them down there. I wouldn't want to risk the bad luck of robbing somebody else's grave.
Okay, this is the place that was actually taken over by the Mongols. Yeah. There's a place in here in which they have some type of agreement where they just kind of get to do their own thing, but they are still under the umbrella of the Mongolian Empire.
Might be Tibet. I think
no, because Tibet was the one that was Kublai's cousin or something like that, and he was still doing shit like the old Mongol way.
Yeah, just the basics. Back to the old agrarian lifestyle. He described these towers in the city built of fine stone, some covered completely in gold up to a finger thick. I think that's what kind of blows me away about this, is there's so much gold and silver that he talks about. Yeah. It's so tough to understand that there was just this precious metal, this resource that we hold above everything else.
That's why Kublai liked to read his stuff. He's like... So he describes the women in vivid detail, and then he just talks about gold and shit. It's perfect.
All the things
this guy
that I
gets
like.
Me.
All the things I like. He said that it was a testament to the magnificence of the ruling pagan kingdom, the kingdom that they then took over. There was a place, Yunnan, the Kerrang region of southwest China. Marco encountered what he claimed to be dragons.
They kind of are.
A little bit. They were serpents that would be said to be about 10 paces long. I don't know how tall Marco was. I'm assuming his pace was probably 2.5 feet, maybe, something like that. With a girth of 10 spans. Again, don't know how long his arms were. 10 spans feels like we're maybe getting a little out of the...
span.
Maybe 10 spans of your hand.
Yeah.
I could see that instead of wingspans. So, again, a pretty thick boy. It had 2 short legs at the front and with tiger-like claws. It had large, glaring eyes. The jaws were wide enough to swallow a man, and its hide was so thick that it could not be penetrated by an arrow. Gotta be a dragon, right?
Saltwater crocs, baby.
Saltwater crocodiles. He is describing something that definitely was not seen in Europe. There's nobody that would understand that.
If you saw that and you had heard of dragons, what else could that be?
Yep.
I think saltwater crocs can weigh over a ton, and I sent this to you. Was it 23 or 27 feet?
I think it was 23 feet.
23 feet long.
So if we're talking 10 paces,
Yeah.
10 paces, that's a saltwater croc. We're in the realm of possibility. A head that can swallow a man. Those saltwater crocs get wide. If you say that that's the hand, which it makes perfect sense that that's what the length is, you could go 10 across the back of one of those things at the center. But also, how close are you getting to a live one? You're not, right? You're measuring a dead one.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I would hope so. He's rolling up in there and he's writing down, he's like, so have a few questions about the region. These might seem a little weird. What's the number one cause of death here? And he's like, dragons. He's like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, the dragons kill a lot of people. We can show you one if you want to see it.
So they're real.
But yeah, like anytime you see a movie, you never see it in China, which is nuts, but people had to go wash their clothes in the river. They had to go gather water. Like, these saltwater crocs would be snatching people like crazy.
Yeah, and saltwater crocs it's not really a misnomer. They need salt water, but you can be in brackish waters. There are some that will travel up rivers into fresh water depending on how far they need to go for food.
On how many people are doing laundry?
Yeah, probably something along there. There's also, they have alligators. The Yangtze alligators that live on the Yangtze River, which is the third longest river in the world, has alligators that can get up to 9 feet long. So again, pretty
Smaller dragons.
Yeah, more dragons there.
Baby dragons.
I believe there was also a Burmese crocodile as well. So we're talking about multiple different types of dragons.
I was going to say, how many variations of dragon do you guys have here? We have a lot.
Yeah. But again, in a young man's mind, hearing about dragons and then seeing that.
I don't think it's a young man's or old man's mind. I don't care whether he sees this at 24 or 36 or 37. He's still looking at this thing and be like, yep.
Yeah. Polo held this deep admiration for the Khan. He saw the Khan as somebody who was filled with energy towards the beginning of the time that they had met each other. He was a guy that would show emotions, and he was so tied up into everything. And some of the things that he writes about him as far as his life, Kublai had 4 wives. He had 22 sons. He had 25 sons by his other concubines. We only have numbers for sons because they don't count the girls in China. Even back then, they didn't count the girls in China.
They also, it's not like they were like fucking killing them or anything.
No.
Those were political tools that you could use to marry off people of other areas to establish, ties.
Yep. Every other year, the Khan would send out agents to all of the vast corners of the realms. They would collect women, and then they would go through and they would rate them. Like, how straight are your teeth? How nice is your hair? Do you snore at night?
It's Mongolian Tinder.
It's just, they go through and they choose
Well, he got to pick for his sons, right? He would have them gather the most attractive women, and then he'd just walk around and been like, for my son, for my son, for me.
And that's
for
what
my
it was.
Son, for me. For my son.
His number, every other year, he's getting 40 new women that are put into the harem.
He's only got 25 sons.
Then they're trained.
Yeah.
They train them in all of these different sexual arts, which, how you training them? I mean, you're testing these things out before the Khan gets to them. They're not in a classroom pointing to a chalkboard, like explaining the techniques.
So you're saying that there's a guy whose job it is to basically, that knows what the Khan likes.
Yeah.
And knows how the Khan likes it. Huh. Okay. The tail end of that job sounds really fun.
Uh-huh.
How you have to gain the knowledge to get that job. Yeah. I don't know how fun that would be.
No, you're watching a lot of Kublai action.
I don't know if you're just watching Kublai action.
You think you're throwing a hand in?
You're having to figure out how to do a hand job. Buddy, I don't want to have this digress into something else, but if we're really going to go historical on this, in order to, Kublai's getting hand jobs, hands down, getting hand jobs.
Absolutely.
Which means that guy has to know how to instruct a woman how to give Kublai a hand job, which means he had to know how to give Kublai a hand job.
Yeah.
Kublai's just like, no one will know you exist. Your role will never be known to anyone. You will be treated very well.
Yes. Better than my queen.
Better than my queen.
Better than my women.
But some stuff's going to happen that I can't have getting out.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about this. Who better to tell this story to than Rustichello? Mm-hmm. Rustichello hears this, and I'm sure this was the happiest point of him writing any of this stuff down. And then you get to this kind of religious, not really puritanical bent, but at some points in times, it's a little holier than thou's as this book is getting translated and written into other languages.
He's got to keep a religious angle. He's got to sell.
Yeah. But you had these people that are reading these accounts of what the Khan's pulling, and they're falling in love with this book because that's the dirty smut. You don't care. He already had to tell you that he saw a dragon. Pretty pumped about the dragon stuff. We're going to talk about unicorns coming up. And now you get these dirty, salacious details, these pillow talk stories about Kublai Khan.
People are talking about his book, and they're like, so there's stuff in here that's very, pro-church and everything like that. So we're being told that we should probably read it. But you're going to have to get through a lot of stuff. And eventually you're reading the book and you're just like, oh my God, this is so fucking good. Oh my God. Oh, religious shit. Well, fucking God's watching, so I better read this.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to speed through, and then, okay, and someone's naked again.
And concubines. Perfect.
Yes.
This is right where I need to be. This other capital that you were talking about, Kambalik, this place was incredible. He praised its straight roads, and I started out with straight roads because I wanted to get the lamest shit out of the way first. I don't know why you praise their straight roads. Maybe straight roads weren't a thing in Italy.
Maybe they're hard.
Possibly. It had a zoo. For all of the animals within the kingdom and probably some of the other places that they visited that were brought back and kept in Kambalik. This is Pablo Escobar shit. Everybody that gets big in the world wants a zoo, and Kublai Khan just had his own personal zoo in Kambalik.
Which is crazy to think of because, like, a zoo these days are trying to, phase out animals that are captured and in the wild and everything. Yeah. Back then, he didn't have fucking tranquilizer darts or anything. Can you imagine trying to go out and hunt a fucking tiger and have to keep it alive? You can't hurt that tiger.
Yeah, and then
or a rhino, or an elephant.
How are you transport? Well, an elephant you could probably at least get to walk with you. Maybe you do a little training and bring them over. Yeah,
you'd probably start breeding elephants at that point. You ain't breeding tigers, man.
No, that's not a safe job for anybody. Even more interesting, it had a stocked pond in it that actually, on your account of talking about getting those animals there, stocking ponds with fishes from all over the area too. Any freshwater fish would be taken out and then brought to this pond to be stocked in. So Kublai could just fish for whatever he wanted to catch. So cool.
At some point, that he's sitting there being like, I haven't been catching this fish in a while. And there was just a guy being like, what's happening to all these fucking fish? And had to somehow figure out which fish were eating that fish and how to balance it out.
Yeah, trying to figure out the natural predators inside of the pond.
He's like, if I don't figure out this fish situation, the fucking Khan's going to cut my head off.
Kublai hasn't caught a tilapia in forever. What's going on? It had a drainage system. We've talked so much about the Greeks and the Romans and just everybody over there that had these drainage systems.
Babylon and all that shit.
Yeah. But independently, they've come up with basically the same systems a world away.
One of the biggest takeaways from reading his stuff is that there is this, Europe is the center and, Italy is the center of the universe is kind of what they thought in terms of cultural.
And from there, yeah.
A lot of this stuff that he brings back as far as stories is just describing certain advancements that are happening over in the empire. Paper money is a huge one.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the concept of he was just like, yeah, you just can walk around without a big, heavy ass bag of gold or silver that can be stolen. You just get to walk around with paper money, and that's how you can buy things around here.
You know what paper money was? Their paper money was backed up by? Not even gold. Silver and silk.
Makes sense.
Silk was that important back then that it was actually a backer for money. That is nuts that silk was that important.
There was all this stuff about how the government was ran, like civil works and civil engineering and all this kind of stuff that was way more advanced than the stuff they had in Europe, which Europeans reading this is where you're going to get a lot of also the sensationalism being like, there's no way that they had this stuff over there.
Yeah.
These people are savages. They don't even have Christianity.
They're using black rocks to heat things?
Yeah, they're burning this thing called coal. It burns way longer than wood does. You can use it for so many other things too, because they use it to, heat metal and forges and everything. They're able to create these wonders because they can keep these furnaces at higher temperatures. And you still got guys back in Europe that are like, more wood, please.
You have the salt trade. You have salt being used as tender to where they're going through and just cutting these blocks of salt and weighing them out to get paid out for them. Like that's how they have allocated these resources, and then you come up with the idea of the Grand Canal to be able to float the salts down from the north down to the south, to spread it throughout those regions, to get it to the port cities, to then slip it down around India, to get it to Iran and the Port of Hormuz where they took off from, and all this kind of stuff for trade. It goes across the Silk Roads. Like the advancements and the way that they set this stuff up, we're going to get into something that's very insane to me. Their postal system. We
talked about this, I think, a little bit on the Silk Road. We talked about it during the Achaemenid Empire, about like grabbing from different cultures. That's insane, man. How many miles could they cover in a day?
I believe it was like 30 or 50.
It was 220, man.
Oh, that was how far away the stops were. And every time you went in there, they would actually have like a new mount for you and food, and everything's replenished.
Or just hand it off to the next guy.
Yeah, that's right. You could go forever. The reason they could go forever was because throughout the empire, it was called the Yam system. They had approximately 1,400 postal stations. They had 50,000 horses that they were using at these places, that they were just little stops to where you could pick up a fresh mount, something that's already been fed and ready to go run another 30 or 50 miles to the next stop.
That feels like a keystone of like a very dominant advanced civilization.
Oh, yeah.
Like when we were talking about the Achaemenids being able to do that, because not only does that just allow you to like pass information in regards to like trade and things like that, the most useful aspect of it is from a military perspective. If something can happen and you can send orders to troops for movements or even send a warning system back, that's huge. You're never going to get snuck up on.
And I think that maybe that's the most important thing, is if there is some things going on inside your empire, you're able to find out about it so much faster because you have this official postal system.
It protects you from outside, but when it ends up coming from within, it's a little trickier, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. But just like you say, we've talked about it in so many different episodes, but the fact that this is just kind of an independent thing that they come up with, it makes so much sense. And it's also the reason why the peso is so important. And this is, again, Marco gets his own. He carries it all around the regions. Obviously, he's traveling with probably a royal group or whatever that's coming to these places. But he's not going and roughing it in the woods in some of these villages. He's staying in the highest class areas everywhere he is because he's just a member of royalty. How he got into that royal position is literally because he just showed up on Kublai's doorstep.
Knew how to speak the language.
Yeah, it looked different than everybody else.
Great at telling stories.
Exactly.
Good yarn.
Like that's how far this goes, and you can kind of tell, and it kind of comes up later on, but there's probably a lot of jealousy in the court.
Oh yeah, I would imagine Marco. So. You also got to think too. You'd never be able to track this figure down. Out of the entire time he was there, I wonder how many times he actually had to sleep without a bed.
Right,
like if they were traveling a certain distance, because again, if you have those little outposts and things like that, he shows up with a paisa, someone's losing their bed for the night.
Absolutely.
Whoever has the nicest bed is losing their bed for the night.
I'm trying to think, do you have any more about any of the cities he visited before we talk about Japan?
So a couple trips that he actually took. I think we talked about how he doesn't like Buddhism.
Oh, yeah.
There was some beef he had.
Well, he called them all idolaters. So basically, any of the religions that he saw inside of China worshipped idols because that's what those religions allowed. Buddhism has a ton of different things that they look to and they pray to. Taoism, very similar. The Mongolians are using the same things. So kind of in the beginning, just being the hard Christian boy that he is, he looks down on these people and he starts talking about how they're all idolaters and they don't know Jesus and they need to focus on what they're doing religiously, but they can't because they have 10 million things that they're praying to. He actually tries it out. He loses a ring, and he goes to a woman who gives him some advice. He gets real scant on the details. He will tell you every wife that he had sex with in a certain Mongolian area.
Did we even touch on that, or is that coming up?
No, we can touch on it now if you want, but this was the one point in time where whatever the advice that he got from this woman leads him to go ahead and find a ring, and then he makes it painfully clear in his writing, or whatever, Risticello, or whatever he told Risticello, that he didn't go pay any sort of good tithings or any thanks.
I'm trying to remember what movie it is, but basically someone's sitting there and they're praying and being like, "Dear God, if you do this for me," and I think he's praying to Buddha or something like that at this point. He's like, "Dear Buddha, I lost a ring that's very important to me. If you help me find it, I promise I will try to go ahead and, start worshiping it." And all of a sudden in the back, someone's like, "Found a ring." He's like, "That was close."
Didn't say amen.
But he basically asked Buddha for help to find it. He found the ring, and then he was like, but was that Buddha that helped me?
Yeah, I didn't even press send on this thing. He doesn't even know that I was trying to talk to him. He does kind of towards the end of his time there kind of become more accepting and understanding. And it's almost like he appreciates the ritual of what they're doing, to the point where he's always going to be a Christian, but it's almost like his mind has been opened because it was so young and malleable when he first got over there.
I think it's more so it just doesn't bother him anymore. He's like, I've been around this for so long.
Yeah.
And these people aren't assholes to me. No one's ever said what I should be doing. The Khan hasn't even told me what I should be doing. Live and let live. Just show me where the guy's wife is. So getting back to that, I know this is a very sex-centric episode, but this is the journey of Marco Polo. He would go into these places where it was the culture of the town or the village or the city where men would openly be like, "Hey, fuck my wife, please." It would be a great honor if, an emissary of the Great Khan would come and plow my wife, or there was probably daughters. There was aunts.
Yep, nieces.
No one was safe from Marco. And this was at several different places. This wasn't just an offshoot of this village out here. There were populous cities that this was just kind of the thing. I don't even, they hear Marco's coming into town, the emissary's coming into town, and they're just lined up, guys standing with their wives in front of them, just being like, here, this one. This
is going to sound like some Marco Polo banging everything apologist. This was actually pretty crucial for these places, though. Mm-hmm. It was very necessary for it to happen. And I know that sounds weird, so hopefully I can land this plane. A lot of these places that were isolated didn't get a lot of new blood to mix into the gene pool.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of reason to move into an area like that.
Yeah. So as you would get these merchants and these travelers and these emissaries coming through, if you could have them impregnate a few different people, that would then open up the opportunities for less chance of a three-eyed kid coming out.
I'd like to propose a situation to you. I can understand that from the standpoint of his little entourage that he's running with are probably locals, or local in the sense of they're from China or Mongolian, things like that. When he rolls into town and this village is looking and been like, "Oh, thank God, new blood for the gene pool." And then the one guy that has the most pull is the white dude. And you've got the hottest wife in town.
Yeah.
You're just like, fuck. There's got to be a little bit of that, right?
You're not even related to Kublai. I can't even try to get my foot in the door way.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is how many kids has this guy actually had all over China? He's there for 17. He's gone 24 total, but he's in China working for the Khan for 17 years. There has got to be some type of genealogy study that can break down how many kids Marco Polo has. I want to know how many 23andMe's are. I don't even know if 23andMe is allowed in China. Didn't you mention that it's not? There's some place that it's not allowed.
I mean, I'm sure it's got it.
Or they have their own version of
Western
it.
Shit.
I want to know how many people have Venetian genealogy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a maybe Polo's revenge for what Genghis Khan did to most of Asia.
I don't think he had that on his mind at all. I think he was just a young man doing his thing. Took a trip to Vietnam. Have we got to that yet?
I think we touched on it on the return.
Okay.
But,
no, there was another trip that he took while he was an emissary.
okay, perfect.
And this led to him seeing tigers.
Yeah.
Also, lions were a thing.
I had no idea.
And it caused them, because of lion attacks at night, to have to sleep on like barges or like rafts at night out in the water so they wouldn't get killed by lions in their sleep.
Hey, put me on the boat. If there's lions on land, put me on the boat.
He sees a unicorn, which is actually described. Once it's described, it's got the feet of an elephant. It's got a strong hide. Not sure how he got unicorn out of this and just didn't go and say, I'm thinking this might be a different animal. Not a lot of horse features on this. It was described it as one horn, which rhinos have two, but the most dominant one, of course, is going to be the one you're going to be paying attention to.
Also described it on the forehead, which it definitely is not on the forehead.
There is one on the forehead, but it's the smaller one.
Yeah, so that's...
I don't know. Yeah.
And this is where I
This
feel
is during
like
a trip.
maybe we get a little third hand from this. Maybe this was something that he had heard.
Yep.
Because that description just doesn't quite jive with somebody who actually sees a rhino.
Yeah.
But again, we have mentions of unicorns and dragons, and these just happen to be two beasts. So does that beg the question that maybe somebody who saw a unicorn, like the whole lure behind a unicorn or a dragon?
Someone's in the court telling this to the Khan. He's like, where's Marco? Get him out here while I'm writing this down. He just writes it down as unicorn.
Yeah.
He ends up going, I think we touched on when he went to Tibet, and basically discovers how the old Mongolian ways work in regards to taking care of business. This was Monkey, I think was his name. He was either a cousin or brother of Kublai. And this guy kind of ruled with like an iron fist. He witnessed a lot of atrocities going on down there. So I'm guessing he probably got back, and Kublai's like, "Yo, you okay? You look a little shaken." He's like, "Yeah, just your cousin's pretty intense." He's like, "Yeah, you can see why we probably put him down in Tibet."
Turns out that those people were defying our rule, and so we went ahead and called in Monkey, and now everything seems to be cool down there.
One thing that kind of Marco starts to notice is once he returns, he's returning after each of these trips, coming back and telling the Khan what's been going on. And he finds out during one of these trips that the Khan's favorite wife had died.
Oh, no.
And so after she dies, he kind of turned to alcohol. He started to become obese. And so, I mean, you'd leave, you'd come back, and he's like, fuck, dude, you got fat. And he's like, I've been drinking a lot. I've been pretty sad. And he starts to develop gout. So they call gout the rich man's disease. I think I got that off Game of Thrones. But at this point, he's kind of going through some stuff. And in this world, you can't be really showing yourself to have any weakness because someone else is going to step up. So this kind of starts to get Marco thinking a little bit and starts getting him a little bit worried, because he knows the old Mongolian way of doing business is the next guy that comes in, he doesn't keep staff on.
Nope.
He usually brings his own guys in, and when he takes out and when he lays off the other staff, it's permanently. So Marco's starting to see this, and I think Niccolo and Maffeo are actually just hanging out in Beijing or wherever the Khan's at the time.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about what they were doing during this point in time.
I think they were just out kind of doing business while Marco was out doing his thing and being an emissary. I think Niccolo and Maffeo were just like, you mind if we just set up shop here and start doing some work? And he's like, yeah, go right ahead.
Well, they're 100% out getting laid.
Oh, 100%.
They're doing the same things. They've been here before.
They're just doing it locally.
Privy to the ways. Hangzhou that we were talking about earlier, pretty big city. From what I looked up, they said that it could have been between 1 million people and 1.5 million people living in this 13th century city in China. Apparently, the women that Marco talks about were pretty classy women. They weren't exactly you point at them, you try to mix the gene. 1.5 million people, they're not worried about the gene pool.
Yes.
So Marco can't play that card. Marco does go on to explain a very concise and very well-run prostitution system inside the city. He says that the women are well-trained in the art of seductions to make you feel more special than you've ever felt in your entire life.
It feels like the Chinese equivalent of like geisha.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this was a time when Marco went to a city and he slapped his hands together and was like, sweet, what am I getting into?
These are our finest courtesans.
Yep. All of the other women in town were like, we don't do that here, man. You got to figure out something else. We're pretty high class. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to leave this city without scoring.
Excuse me, ma'am. You're very beautiful. May I talk to your husband, please? They're like, yeah, that doesn't fly here, dude. You're going to want the red light district down the street. He's like, what's that? They're like, you'll see. Take that Pisa with you.
Yep. He squeezed a lot out of that prostitution juice, I'm sure, just to try to feel his way out. Talking about the weakness, Kublai might have there were failed invasions in a few different places. But something that we talked about in the Japan episode, the samurai episode, was he kind of had this eye for Japan. He would send 2 invasions over Japan, one in 1274, and they were repelled by a typhoon. I believe they called it the Divine Winds, the kamikaze. Mm-hmm. This happens, not fairly early in his reign, but he's still kind of a young, able-bodied. I'm sure his favorite wife is still alive at that point in time.
It was 1274, so it's a little bit
1274,
later.
yeah, that's what I mean. He was probably still in the prime of his life at this point. Mm-hmm. 1281 rolls around, and Kublai is ready to send some more troops back in to try to take over Japan. Polo says that he steps in, and he's like, hey, this might be a bad decision. Things didn't go well last time. Understand that if you are showing any weakness, there's going to be members of your family that are probably going to try to take you. I'm sure partially because he cared about the continent. I'm sure there was another part where it's like, and we're still within the parts of the kingdom.
He's like, so I've been traveling around a bit, keeping my ear to the ground. There are some rumblings about you getting a little fat, and your foot not working as well as it should, so maybe just ease up.
Yeah, maybe let's leave the Japanese alone. To no end, Kublai ends up sending over the invasion fleet in 1281, where the Divine Winds took, I believe they said the second round was in between 50 and 100,000 soldiers.
Mm-hmm. I think the first one, he lost 13,000.
13.
And then it was worse on the second one. And these are guys that are he's probably also pulling in, troops and soldiers and stuff from all over the empire. But at the same time, if a majority of those are within his area,
the A-team,
he sends them over, loses a lot of his guys. Other areas are going to be pissed because he sent them over without anything to show for it, and then he's going to be a little bit weakened. So there's multiple layers to this. Yeah,
and after this happens, there is kind of some shifting going on in the court. I think that maybe there's a little bit of bias shown because there were Arabs that were over in the court as well. Like we were talking about, he used a lot of the officials that went out from different areas. There were people from Arabia there. There were Islamic folks there. It was literally a religious melting pot of everybody that could go over there and understood that this is such like a very precious amount of time that they have that they can't spend it squabbling with anybody else.
Yeah.
But there kind of tends to be some push. Polo points a couple fingers at some Islamic people that are in the court about starting some rumblings. But he knows that after 1281, it's probably time that they need to start talking to Kublai about going home.
There was a situation, I think his second in command was a Muslim guy. And this guy I think he had raped this woman and her husband was pissed. And I think he was kind of a person of not like high station, but had a little bit of pull.
Enough that you shouldn't be messing with his wife.
This guy's fucking Kublai's second in command. I don't know if you really...
Yeah.
It wasn't like he could go to Kublai and been like, hey man, this guy banged my wife. He's like, which province are you in again? And do you guys do that? And he's like, no, we don't live in that province. He's like...
What are your rules?
He's like, the guy's my second in command. I'm not really going to do shit. This guy is like, I'm going to take... This guy wanted just like justice. So he ends up creating this elaborate plan that is going to involve a visit from Kublai's son on like an inspection or something like that. Mm-hmm. He was able to like recreate the armor and had guys with him that looked like kind of the entourage that would run with his son or the soldiers.
Yeah.
He rolls up to this second in command city or wherever he's currently at because he has already kind of sent word ahead that he's Kublai's son. The guy has to come out and meet him. Mm-hmm. As he comes out and meets him, the guy on the horse fucking kills him, turns around and hauls ass back, and they escape.
Didn't he request that he came out and met him? He wanted him to be a part of the welcoming party.
Yes, something like that. So that's why he was able to get him in that position. This guy gets away, but then ends up going to the Khan and being like, hey, this is what we did. I had to do it first before I came to you because you would have stopped me from doing it.
Yeah.
Khan has them all killed, but then ends up finding out that this dude was planning on betraying him. So I think this, and I think this also kind of wakes him up to this, wolves at the door, tigers at the door, whatever you want to call it. And at this point too, the whole Polo's going home to Kublai. These are people that he can trust, that he knows aren't going to make a power play because they don't have enough of a power base. Yeah. He also likes Marco. He likes what Marco's doing. He likes having him around, and he probably likes having Maffeo and Niccolo around as well. These are people that he, regardless if he trusts them in any type of like position of power, he at least knows that these guys are entertaining for him.
Yeah, and they're useful idiots. They can't draw enough backing in Asia to try to do anything.
Mm-hmm. So this is why he's also nervous and is like, no, like, listen, my empire is pretty huge. If you guys are getting, your legs are getting stiff and everything, go take a walk around. You guys got your pieces. You can go anywhere in the empire. You have my permission, but you ain't leaving the empire. Just so we're clear.
You're still in service to the Khan.
Yep.
And I just wonder at that point in time, like, are they formulating a plan? Like, could they park themselves as far west as possible and then send notice back to Kublai that they're just checking out this area?
I don't think they send notice. I think they I was going to say maybe that's something that's also on Kublai's mind. He's like, I've got a lot of emissaries. I'm going to go ahead and send them to the west.
Yeah.
They'll take care of that area. I'm going to keep Marco and Niccolo and Maffeo. They can stay here in this area. I'll just keep Marco where he has to keep coming back. He's not going to ditch his dad and his uncle.
No. Well, he's only known them. He's known me for almost as long as he's known them. So
that's true. And I'm probably a lot more powerful than they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So the heat's on. As soon as the Polos realize this, they're trying to formulate a plan. Something ends up falling to place in the early 90s. And
1290s.
The early 1290s. After refusing these requests, something kind of came up as far as like, okay, I believe it was his grandnephew, Argon, in Persia, was the ruler over there.
It was his nephew, and then the grandnephew comes in here in a second.
Okay.
I believe so.
Argon rules over Persia. Kublai gets word that his wife had died. He was just so torn up.
One of his wives died.
That's what I don't understand. Like, Kublai is torn up because his favorite wife died. Mm-hmm. Are the other three wives, did they just know, like, hey, she was his favorite?
Yeah.
We feel bad that he feels bad. He like, no, there's still three of us.
No, they know.
Everybody's kind of falls into line.
Yeah, so Kublai's like, I'll send you a replacement. I want you to make sure you have your 4 wives and everything, so...
Here's the deal. Your replacement has to be from the same bloodline that the wife you lost was, because that was my connection with my empire over for you.
So he gathers up the ones that they can find, and he's like, I'm going to go ahead and pick you. And it ends up being this woman or girl whose name is Kokochin. And he goes and he's like, okay, I'm sending you down the Silk Road, sending you to Persia. He ends up getting them and their little retinue or, entourage back, and they're like, actually, it's not really that, like, shit's kind of popping off down there. Like,
a lot
it's
of
not
squabble.
safe. Yeah. And so this is worrying to him as well. And all of a sudden, Niccolo and Maffeo and Marco come in. They're like, as merchants, we know how to sail. And we're not going to run into, we can bypass all of this trouble. Why don't you trust us. Let us take Kokochin to Persia for you. Make sure she's all set up. Make sure she's safe. And he's like, fuck, I need to get her there. Here's the deal. You guys can go ahead and take her. I'm going to send you with a ton of people.
600 people.
You guys are going to go. And after you get her settled, I'm going to give you guys a bunch of letters. You guys are then going to go serve as my emissaries like you've been doing here, but now you're my guys. You're not the Venetian emissaries that are coming to service me. You're now my guys that are going to service me over in Europe. I want you to go start building all of these ties with the European nations.
And then come back.
And then you're coming back. And they're like, okay, yeah, we're definitely going to come back, but yeah, we'll take care of all that stuff first.
You think Niccolo leans over to Marco and he's like, are we coming back? And Marco leans back and he goes, he's old as shit and he's got gout. By the time we get there, it's not going to matter.
So
we got 3 years max to be worried about this guy, and then everything's going to be all right.
So finally allowing them to leave in 1290, like you were saying.
These dumb dickheads end up talking Kublai Khan. I'm sure it's because he's old and probably has some good feelings towards these people, that they're expert sailors. These guys are merchants. They weren't captains of ships or anything like that.
No, I think it was more for the fact that they had experience sailing, or they could present.
They had been on a ship.
Yes, I understand that, but he didn't know that they didn't have Mediterranean experience and all this kind of stuff. He knew he trusted them.
We got to talk about the Chinese ships.
Yo, fuck yeah, we are.
Hell yeah, because you had those ships that were coming over from the port of Hormuz that they looked at and were like, not seaworthy.
No.
Not going to work. These Chinese ships that they roll out are immaculate.
Which is crazy because their name are junks. Mm-hmm. Chinese junks.
Yeah.
If you're looking for like a point of reference, Pirates of the Caribbean, I think it's Dead Man's Chest, where they're in Singapore, and then it's also like the Pirate Queen. Those ships with like kind of the sails that are not like canvas, they're almost slats and everything, kind of the weird shape. Those are like sorry, I accidentally turned off the recording and I don't want to go back and listen to it. So the ships themselves were like larger than almost anything he'd ever seen. There were 14 ships that were going to be sent in this fleet. Shut the fuck up over there.
I love the honesty.
Okay,
we don't. Everything that you guys get is pretty much from us hitting record to us hitting stop.
Yeah. The bathroom break is all that happens.
Yeah.
So some of these ships were huge, like 4-masted ships, which if you're nautically, not inclined or anything like that, you have to have enough room between these masts in which the sails can actually have room and everything, but also be spaced far enough apart that they can be effective. Because if you're just putting them close together, the wind's hitting one and not getting to the other. So there's a science to this. Some of these are these enormous 4-masted ones. Enough room on these 14 ships that they were able to send 600 passengers.
We're talking about 1292, right?
Mm-hmm.
These ships
1290.
were twice the size of the ships that Columbus took over to the Caribbean.
Yeah, and some of them much larger than that.
200 plus years, and the Spanish hadn't come up with bigger ships.
Yeah. And these weren't your coconut husk held together ones. These things were iron nailed. They said that the way that the Mongolians and the Chinese were building these ships is they would have multiple hulls. So it wouldn't just be one layer of wood. They would put multiple layers, sometimes 3 and 4 thick. And then sometimes after the ships would be, used quite a bit, they would come back. They'd be like, nope, it's still floating. We know how many more of these layers we can add to it. And you would get these things that had sometimes like a dozen layers that were placed on the ships. And then finally they'd be retired and broken apart.
Right, because they were too heavy to sail.
That's what it was.
They had it wasn't sap that they used to seal them up. It was some sort of concoction. It was like 2 different elements that Polo pointed out was just absolutely superior to sap.
Mm-hmm.
Like these ships were probably the best ships potentially in the world at that point in time. So going to feel a little safer going across the Indian Ocean and something like that as
you're not even
to
sailing these things. You're sometimes walking up to the helm where the captain's at and everything. And you're like, spyglass. Pull it out and you're looking like, oh, yes, the open ocean. I've missed it. And then you just hand it back and you go back in your cabin.
Everybody good? Yeah, good. All right.
Everyone's doing great. Keep it up.
So, 1292, they end up setting off from a port. Well, they end up setting off down the Grand Canal. I believe they hooked up to either the Yellow River or the Yangtze River to get out. The last stop that they make is at a port city in southeast China. Do you have the name for it?
The name of it.
Okay. First place they would land is Vietnam. And Vietnam again is where instead of coming down inland, now he's starting to see kind of the port cities and the under stuff.
Yeah.
And he's doing all of this extensive writing still. Doesn't have to really probably report to Kublai anymore. Like, they know that Kublai is going to die probably pretty soon.
Yeah.
This is just Marco taking notes and being this weird anthropologist before there was a study or before there was a field of study.
If you've been doing this for the last 17 years, you've had to found a way to do it in an enjoyable way. And then he's just thinking to himself, I got some good shit that I've been documenting my entire stay here. Why would I stop now?
Yeah. And it's so cool to know that he still is just in that mindset, to be able to look at something and break it down, to be able to write just about the people and what's going on. After that, they end up landing in Sumatra, and this is where he has his second run-in with the unicorns. He said that the
people call them rhinos.
He would remark on the towns and the people as far as just like their daily comings and goings as they're sitting in there. And I believe that they ended up sitting there for a fair amount of time. I don't remember if it was...
This journey takes long as shit.
Yeah.
Despite being in boats.
Yeah, there's so many times that they're just literally like they're up to Mother Nature as far as this goes. They end up spending 5 months in Sumatra because of monsoon season. So they're there for another extended amount of time. After that, they then sail on to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, modern day today. After they bounce out of there, they're going to end up navigating through the Strait of Malacca and then along the west coast of India, again, stopping at all of these ports. And as they're doing this, we're talking about people that are still traders. They're still in there. They're picking up different things from these regions. They're taking them. They're dropping them off. They're living their merchant lifestyle still. And
we got big ass fucking ships here.
yeah, then at the same time, there's stuff with 600 people, but we can still fit some more shit on here.
Well, maybe not 600 people at this point.
Yeah, possibly after monsoon season.
I said, they're getting pretty close to Persia at this point, so I think they might be a little bit lower on the
True.
the amount of people.
Yeah, you're right. But at the same time as they're doing this, as they're scoring these big deals, they're then going into these towns and they're converting whatever money they get into jewels because that's their major thing that they want to transport.
I think they said before they left, they weren't taking gold or silver with them. So
Smart.
even before they left, like the Khan's court and everything, they had converted a bunch of stuff. And I want to say there was some diamonds, but at this point, any rare gem or precious stone is going to be worth a lot.
Yeah.
Jade, sapphires, rubies. I want to say there was some diamonds. And then when they went to India, that's where they were able to get a bunch of the lapis lazuli, which the only reason I know how to pronounce that and even what that is because it's a block in Minecraft. And my kid loves that. So he builds stuff out of it.
And it's here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because we talked about it during the Silk Road episode.
Oh, and they found it in that tomb, and then that's where
they found it in Afghanistan. They found it down in Tutankhamun's.
Yeah, that's totally where I know it from.
They just kind of keep puttering along, and they get stuck in different places for certain amounts of time. They're doing their trading thing. They're making the most of their mercantilism to make all this stuff happen. After they go around India, they finally reach the port of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. They then go overland to the capital of Persia. This voyage took 2 years. And of that 2 years, Marco writes that only 18 of the original passengers
ended up making it
to Persia. Supposedly, there were some pretty big storms that took out quite a few people on the ships.
Well, it took out quite a few ships and everything. But I think this is a situation where this number is exaggerated. Maybe they lost a ton of ships, which I'm sure they did. But at the same time, if you're saying, hey, 200 people made it, no. Like, let's make it seem like we had to really get through some stuff. 18 people made it. Regardless, they lost a lot of people.
Think about all the hanger-ons that ended up leaving at certain points in time on this journey already.
That's true.
We have the friars that pieced out. We had the ambassador from Khan that pieced out. These guys along these stops are probably sitting in Sumatra for 5 months and being like, I think we're just going to
This is also still part of his empire.
Yeah.
Which means he's probably sending out of these passengers. It's not people on fucking vacation.
No.
These are people that work for him that he's probably also saying, you're going to get off here. You're going to get off here. You're going to get off here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure everything's cool and you're going to come back and report to me.
So 18, most definitely got to be wrong because that's insane for the size of the ships.
I'm
that
sure a
they were
lot of
using.
people still died.
Yeah, but it might have been 100 people that showed up with them. Once they get to Persia, they find out that Argon had died. Now what to do with this princess, because she doesn't have anybody to marry. Eventually, they would spend 5 months in Persia because after Argon died, his son ascended to the throne, his child son ascended to the throne. They ended up working out a deal to get the princess married to Argon's son, which, how does that not just fit together perfectly? Apparently, they'd formed enough of a bond with the princess that after they got this deal done, she actually begged them to stay.
They stayed another little bit, didn't they?
Yeah. During this 5 months was the time that they were there. I don't know when they married her off.
I would imagine, too, that it would be a situation where if the original plan of the Khan was like, you're going to marry this guy, and you get there, because he ended up getting poisoned or something like that. Yeah, that's how he died.
Yeah, he died. He was killed. He didn't just die.
You're having to report that back to the Khan, be like, okay, and then he's having to be like, okay, well, who does he have to, replace it? You then got to get permission from the Khan in order to put that next person in power and then marry them to Kokochin.
Yeah, Kokochin married Ghazan. Not important, but just put a name to who the ruler was. A couple months after that, in 1294, they were alerted to Kublai's untimely death.
Yep. I think they were able to say February in that situation.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, February of 1294. They're in Persia from like 1291 or part of 1291 to 1293.
Is that travel or is that just them being in the city?
That's when they are able to... So it took them 2 years to get from the voyage from China to there, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think it was like between 5 and 9 months that they were there for getting her set up, and then her being like, I don't know anyone here. Please stay here. I've at least spent the last 2 years with you guys.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're marrying into multiple wives, a bunch of consorts. You'll make friends fast, I'm sure.
We have a group.
They left enough of an impression on her that when they did leave, Marco said that she cried and hugged them both or all three of them as they left.
I'm being sold off. Now you're leaving.
Do you think he tempted fate with the princess on the ships? You think
Okay,
he asked?
Hold on. I'm doing math. Are they is the Khan of a mindset that an experienced woman is better?
Well, if it's anything like the Khan, she's going to have to get trained anyway.
So if she's not a virgin, then yeah, I'm thinking Marco probably got up on it. It's 2 years, man.
That's a long time at sea, and you're with a bunch of other smelly dudes on there, probably not a lot of women on the ship. Mm-hmm. You've had a taste of this fine Asian lovemaking for so long. Probably might try it again. One more for the road, as they say. Yeah, I can believe that.
There's a sympathetic shoulder. It's okay, Kokochin. It's okay.
After dropping her off, they traveled back across Iran and ended up to the Black Sea. They are coming to a point to where their prizes are about to run out of use, because once you depart the Persian Empire into where the Byzantines are back working again, you tend to get a little harassed.
They don't like the name Polo.
No, they don't like Venetians. Mm-hmm. Polo's not their favorite sport. It's not their favorite scent. It's not their favorite clothing. Mm-mm. Not to mention, these dudes are dressed like Tartars, which were the Mongol group that the Byzantines had quite a problem with.
They had the haircut too, didn't they? Where it was like shaved on top and it was long on the sides.
Yep. Traditional robes, the whole getup.
And they're also traveling with like loot.
And after 17 years in China and speaking mostly Mongolian, they have basically only been speaking Mongolian. Mm-hmm. And their Latin's a little rusty.
A lot of stuff working against these guys.
Yeah, they ended up getting tuned up. I believe they basically got shook down. I think it was like 3/4 of the wealth that they had on them as far as like that they were showing. At the same time, they still had all those rubies and everything inside.
They knew what to do. They had them sewn inside. I gotta imagine, like, because they're traveling with other clothes too. You're putting the majority and the most, valuable stuff on your person.
Yeah.
All your other clothes have got to have it sewn in as well.
Everything has to. Yeah, for sure. Not anything that you're carrying probably has a little hidey hole, or anything that maybe doesn't look important that you could hide it in is probably what you're going for. Eventually, they would finally arrive home in 12. I'm not even going to use a date because all these dates are so messy. Do you have a date when they got home?
It was 1295.
Okay. To a very cold welcome from their family that had moved into their palazzo that they had before they took off. I wondered about this for about 2 seconds, and then it really all kind of came to me because we were talking about how Niccolo took off and didn't know that his wife had died and he had a son because they couldn't write back and forth. They were gone for almost 25 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the family probably wrote them off 6-8 months into the journey.
If they were looking to get information, which I wonder if they tried to get communication back to us. I didn't hear anything about that.
No, none whatsoever.
If that didn't occur, the last people to see them were the friars. They were hauling ass back after like some difficulties and bandit shit, going back to the Pope and being like, hey, what are you guys doing back here? He's like, the Polos, I'm sure they're fine, but there were some bandits. If you're thinking that way, you're like, these guys have not shown up for 24 years. The bandits probably actually got them. If not those, the ones, half a mile down the road.
Or they were going into the Mongol Empire that we know is a very scary place.
Yeah, they're going into the unknown, the complete unknown.
So yeah, they're dressed like Tartars. They were speaking mainly Mongolian. I'm sure they were trying to brush off a little Latin, but 17 years speaking one language.
Could you imagine that? Some dude show up, and this was almost after, I got to point this out, almost 15,000 miles traveled. They show up, you get some guys at the door dressed as in traditional Mongolian garb. I'm sure the hair had grown back during this time period. They had probably worked to grow that back. As soon as they got on the ships, they're like, oh, God, we don't have to shave the top of our heads anymore.
Yeah, we can shave our faces instead of the tops of our heads.
But we kind of have nothing to really show who we are that couldn't be forged or made up until they're like, oh, hold on a second. And just pull a shit ton of rubies and diamonds and all that kind of stuff out of their robes and like, look how rich we are. And they're like, even if you're not technically who you say you are, you're rich and you're bringing it into the family. So welcome back.
We're going to take you at face value on this one, as long as we get a cut of whatever that is.
Niccolo, Maffeo, and Marco. Okay.
We'll call you whatever you want. Just more rubies, please. Didn't take long for them to get tied back into Venetian issues because Venice had gone to war with its rival Genoa.
And this was at a time when this wasn't like a united Italy. This is the time when there were city-states, kind of like we talk about during like episodes on ancient Greece. There was the Republic of Venice, and then there was also, I don't know if it was the Republic of Genoa or what it was referred to.
Yeah, the Genoese. And I heard differing reports. Maybe you can clear this up. Polo either joined a Venetian galley or he had paid for his own boat.
No, he paid for his own boat or had one of his boats converted.
Yeah.
Put a freaking catapult or trebuchet on the front of it because that was something that he either picked up going through Persia because they had it or something. We kind of alluded to it, but there was some stuff. There's going to be some stuff in his book that alludes to certain like siege warfare of certain cities that had occurred before he showed up. But apparently he was a big fan of the trebuchet. He's like, check this thing out. We'll be able to hit boats from much further away. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I forgot that in the notes. I don't know which one it's on. But basically, Marco tells a story about the Mongols were invading a city. They were laying siege to a city. They ended up not being able to get past the wall. And Marco says that him, Maffeo, and Niccolo explained how to build a trebuchet for the Mongols to use. The Mongols then used the trebuchet and ended up breaching the walls and taking the city. And he took full credit for that. And the siege actually took place like 2 years before they even got into China.
Yeah.
It was said that they probably learned it from one of the Muslim people of the court that had these siege engines
Yeah.
the same, just as well.
Because again, when you're going into some place, you're also taking all of that technology and all of that advancement that they have that you don't.
Yeah, so this is another very clear version of Marco telling a story that wasn't his at all, but formed it to his own.
And what's nuts about this is he gets back in 1295.
Yep.
He equips this galley. He's ready to go to war. He ends up going, and in 1296, he's captured by the Genoans off the coast of Anatolia.
Was it 1296 or 1298?
1296.
Okay, God, that's quick.
So
that's
within
super
the
quick.
year, or the very next year, he's captured after he had gotten back, and he's imprisoned. And this is where we kind of come full circle back to where we talked about in the beginning. He ends up being imprisoned with this guy that had already been there. I can't remember the exact reason that other guy was there.
They had fought a war with Pisa too.
Oh, that's right.
In the south of France, and he ended up being taken prisoner as well.
So
this is so weird to me that a merchant gets picked up in a war and a smut book writer gets picked up fighting in a war.
Can't write this shit, buddy. This is
It's
movie
incredible
stuff.
how this all comes to play.
So Rusticello or Rusticello da Pisa basically is sitting in the cell, and Marco had been known. He was the captain of a ship, so he was getting, him and Rusticello were not in a like dungeon type prison.
This was like house arrest.
This was kind of house arrest. So they're sitting there talking. Marco is like, I can't believe I'm fucking already imprisoned. I just got back to Venice like last year. And he's like, oh yeah, what were you doing before that? He's like, I actually spent 24 years before that in the court of Kublai Khan in China. And the guy's like, fuck you. No, you didn't. He's like, no, man. Starts telling him these stories. This guy's like, hold on a second. Hey, guards, can I get some paper in here? I need to start jotting this down. Keep going. He's like, my memory's kind of spotty. I mean, it was 17 years that I was doing this stuff. He's like, okay, can you get your notes? He's like, guards, can I send for my notes from Venice? And they're like, yeah, I guess. I mean, we'll send word and then someone can bring them down to you.
You guys just keep being cool. Keep doing your thing in here.
They also liked him too because he was telling stories to him. So they're like, yeah, why not? He somehow gets his notes down there. And Rusticello pretty much documents all of these stories and puts them into a book or a manuscript. And that's where we get, all of the information from his travels throughout the empire of Kublai Khan.
Yeah, Rusticello and Polo end up getting released in August of 1299. And they start this book, The Travels of Marco Polo. It was called Il Milion at some point. Marco was referred to as Il Milion for multiple reasons that we've heard about. He had a million stories. He told a million lies. He didn't know what a million looked like because he would often refer to cities of a million people, and they thought that was completely unbelievable. Even though we can go back now and say there were some cities in China that had a million people, because we're talking about a time when 100,000 was like the biggest European city.
And that didn't occur until after the title came out, because after people read it and everything, they're like, oh, it's called Million because of this and this and this.
Yeah, so this is when the fire starts happening. It also gets titled the Book of the Marvels of the World, which, again, I was thinking about, I was like, he went to Asia. It was the world. Mm-hmm. Like, at this point in time, it basically sans Europe. It sans Europe and Russia, and parts of Russia, actually. This was the world.
And it's not like there hadn't been people going over there. While they were serving in the court of Kublai, there were other merchants coming over and seeing what it was like and things like that. These guys aren't going back and writing a book. These guys are going back and maybe telling their buddies about it and being like, no, man, it's fucking crazy over there. They got the sexual freedoms over there are insane. This guy's putting pen to paper, or Rusticello is, and this pretty much gives Europe, or established Europe, whatever they had outreach to at that point, their first actual real glimpse of what like China and Kublai's empire is actually like in detail, not just saying it as part of like an anecdote or a story.
Yeah.
It's giving them a wide swath of information, much of it probably sexual in nature.
Yeah.
But at the same time, telling them about all these fantastical things, the dragons and things like that, to where people are like, this has got to be horse shit. Like he's saying they're more advanced than us, and these know, you know what, he's making this stuff up. And so as much as people believe it, there's a lot of people that are disbelieving of this as well.
Can you really tell me that at this point in time in history, things that people aren't obsessed with aren't people that things are obsessed with aren't dragons, unicorns, and sex?
No, they're fucking in Venice. They don't give a shit.
But the book sells now.
Oh, 100% yes.
Just based upon all of these fantastical things.
Yeah, if you just took the story of Marco Polo and then just set it in like a D&D setting and just ran it back and it was like he served this king and there were actual dragons, people would be like, oh yeah, this shit's hot.
Eat it all up.
Yes.
And not to mention all of these stories and everything that he had got run through an author already.
I'm telling you right now, it would be smut. This is what it would be. It would be fantasy smut. And it would get eaten up.
And I think everybody would be in on it.
Oh yeah.
Like this is a full gendered book that would have something for everybody in it.
The book is just, it's why Game of Thrones is appealing. Sex, dragon, sex, dragon, sex, dragon. Like, yeah.
Same thing. Marco leads a pretty, I don't know, a normal life after this. It's hard to call this guy's life normal, but 1300, he marries the daughter of another fairly rich merchant, Donata Bador. They would have 3 kids in 1300, not all in 1300, but they would get married in 1300. He'd have 3 kids. He had 3 daughters. That feels like irony.
No one to tell his stories to.
Yep, going all the way back around. And maybe that's why everybody started getting tired of hearing his stories, because he had so many of them because he didn't have any kids to tell them to.
Yeah. Niccolo had died sometime prior to 1300. So sometime maybe even while he was actually still imprisoned. But can you imagine the stuff he showed to Donata? Or was like, she's like, is this good for you? He's like, if I'm being honest with you, this is pretty vanilla. I've done some shit. I'm going to show you what it is. I'm going to need zero judgment, but I can tell you that some of it might be good for you.
What do you want to do to me? We're going to need some bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need some bamboo. I need to be staring at a dragon. we got to spice this up somehow.
Where's my silk? We're going to need silk.
I need to be chased by a unicorn while we're doing this. Mm-hmm. It's the only way that I can finish. So he collects his father's inheritance. He then would end up collecting his uncle's inheritance. Him and his uncle went in on a fairly lucrative merchant business while they were back in Venice. He ends up becoming a pretty wealthy merchant that never ends up traveling back to Asia. Mm-hmm. It was like he went out, he sowed his wild oats, and then he just set his roots down.
Any reason he had to go back there died back in 1274, whenever it was that, or 1294 when Kublai died.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was holding him to it. Do you think that if he hadn't died, they'd be worried? Kublai wouldn't. I guess he couldn't really. Yeah, I guess it could have been another emissary. He wouldn't have sent like hitmen after them.
I mean, he probably would have sent people. He knew that they were from Venice. At some point, I don't know. I think stuff, even if he was still alive, I think stuff was probably getting a little dicey for him there. Probably low on the priority list.
So even getting,
he was always hoping he'd have a bad day and he'd be like, "Man, I wish Marco's here."
Like, would Marco have to look over his shoulder every single day if Kublai was still alive?
Nah.
Yeah, probably pretty safe back in Venice.
But throughout the rest of his life, he, as much as people appreciated the works, I think there was kind of an equal amount of people that thought he was just full of shit. He had mentioned, I believe it was like on his deathbed, he's like, I haven't even told you guys half of what I saw. And the half that he probably was kind of leaving out was probably stuff that his wife and daughters weren't meant to hear.
Yeah.
But kids would follow him around and being like, "Oh, Mr. Millions," or Mr. Marco, tell us a lie.
Hitting kids had to not be against the rules back then.
He's like, "You little shits."
Exactly. Yeah, his life ends up, I wouldn't call it bad because it seemed like it did pretty good, but when you're bedridden, 1323, bedridden Marco, on death's door, is once again questioned by friends and priests to say, hey, if you want to unburden yourself, if you want to tell us that you made the whole China thing up, we don't know where you were for those 24 years. Just go ahead and spill your guts. Tell us that it was all a lie. You don't want to get up to heaven. and be sitting there at the pearly gates, and they're questioning you about this incredible, fantastical book of lies that you wrote with the smut peddler. He looks up at them and he says, "I have not told you half of what I saw." I'm glad that he said this because it gives me some cover because I want to give this guy as much credit as possible. There's a lot of things that they point out about the story of Marco Polo that don't quite seem to jive because he wrote down a lot of stuff. He identified a lot of things. There's a few things that they kind of bang on him for not identifying. One of them we can knock off pretty much immediately. Never mentions the Great Wall. He doesn't mention the Great Wall because at that point in time, the Great Wall wasn't so great. Now, go back, listen to our Great Wall episode. It was a hell of a lot of fun. At this point in time, when Marco gets there, the parts and sections of the wall, because again, the Great Wall isn't just one singular wall, these sections hadn't need to have been used because part of the reason they had these walls were to keep out intruders.
Yeah.
Those intruders were running the dynasty at that point in time because the wall didn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't sound so impressive if Marco's walking around. He's like, "What's the big stone thing?" They're like, "Oh, they tried to build a wall to keep us out, and we just like went around it." He's like, "So it's not a very good wall." They're like, "Horrible wall." Don't even. He's just like, "I'm not writing about that."
They said that it hadn't been, or at least people that have gone back and looked at this. Around the time that Marco's over there, the wall hadn't been used for like 50 years. It had just fallen into disrepair. It had been abandoned. It's actually, I believe, the next dynasty right after the Yuan dynasty is when the actual like major sections of the wall go under construction. So the time
we got the fucking Mongols out.
Exactly.
More wall. Keep them out.
We keep them out, or we kicked them out. Now we need to keep them out. So we need a bigger wall. So he gets a pass for that. His lack of mentioning foot binding, a very popular thing that they had done back in those times, and I think probably still a little bit nowadays, is never mentioned in the travels of Marco Polo.
He's not a foot guy.
Yeah, not a foot guy. That's exactly. That's how you rule that out. Feet weren't his thing. They didn't do it for him.
There's so many other things. Why his feet? No.
And at that point, I can say that that's the other half that he didn't say what he saw. So that works too. Didn't mention the use of chopsticks, which again feels very arbitrary. And maybe this is just the weird mental thought that I've built up of the Mongolians. It probably wasn't chopsticks for them, right? That's probably bare hands.
If he's in, no, I think if he's in the court of Kublai, like you said, they're
Silverware.
using silverware and everything. If he's going out and he's seen people eating with just chopsticks, in his head, he doesn't view that as the dominant, like, advanced cultural thing. He's like, they're just doing this because they're sticks and they're poor, so they have to use these. That could have been when he's going down and he's listing out this stuff to write. And like he said, I haven't told you half of what I saw. In his head, when he's trying to give out the stuff that's actually going to sell or the stuff that sounds good, he's like, well, you know, they ate with sticks in the smaller village, and Rusticella's just like, oh, no, fuck that. Go on, move on.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, is he's at the mercy of Rusticello writing this down. So, again, I'm laying cover for a guy that the reason that I like him is because he has this different aura. We've talked so much about travelers that wherever they're, explorers, wherever they're traveling, usually death kind of comes in their wake. And I'm sure Marco saw a lot of death. He might even put a person or two down.
He murdered a few things when he was there.
He did. Yeah, he murdered a lot of things. But at the same time, he's just fun. He's there. This is just like, we're not talking about a guy that we said it earlier in the episode. We're not talking about a guy that was sent there on orders from a king to write everything down.
He's not a conqueror.
Yeah, he was there for a good time. The Khans had already done that. The Mongolians had already done all of that conquering, and they're still doing it while he's there. There's still active war going on. He'd never have to get his hands dirty.
No. He just got to have fun and do a job.
And yeah, I don't really... It's immaterial to me, really, what is real and what isn't, because it's just such a good story.
Yeah.
This is Greek mythology. I mean, it's just so fun that it doesn't really matter.
But it has enough ties for them to be like, yeah, I guess he was here because he did this stuff.
Learned a lot, for sure.
I don't know if did you mention when he died?
1323?
1324, January.
Okay.
They say it was like January 8th or 9th, might have been in the night, but that's when it's recognized that he died. But yeah, I want to go back and watch the Netflix show, because if half of this stuff's in there, it's going to be badass.
The fact that we haven't gotten a a full-blown movie of this is kind of surprising.
The Netflix series, I'll let you know if it was good enough for them to be like, well, it's already been done. But I don't know if you can do a movie about this, like with how much stuff he did. And what's your rating going to be if you're going to show the true story of Marco Polo?
True. It's going to be softcore.
It's going to be NC-17, baby.
All the entire time.
All right, man. You got anything else on this guy?
The best way that I can surmise him, and I think we talked about it during study, is he's a little bit of Don Quixote.
He's the Venetian Forrest Gump.
The Venetian Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of Forrest Gump is he's sitting there telling his story. Everything seems so fantastical, but it's coming from a source where there's enough to back it up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. We'll hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch you next week.
Peace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for another episode. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe and like button. Follow us. If you didn't like what you heard, still hit that anyway, because we'll probably cover something in the future that you do like. Please follow us on our social media. Adam, hit him with it.
Our Instagram is historically high pod, historically high pod, and we are on Twitter at historically high. That's historically HI.
All right. And if you guys want to send in any feedback, suggestions, hit us up on those two, or you can even do it on Gmail. It's historicallyhighpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Peace.